Hello, everybody. Hello, I'm a European. Can anyone translate? Use Google. W. You know what that reminded me of, dude? How much it pisses me off when people use military time. Like, hey man, I'm not trying to do combat drills. Just like tell me what time it is, big dog. Hey, that's a great point about military time. But that doesn't change the fact that D4 is bad. Dude, I fucking love D4. Dude, how much a game occupies your time is just such a different metric to so many people. Like for me, dude, I played D4 for like 3 weeks when it came out. Absolute blast. That was already worth the price it was. And then every season I play it for like 2 to 3 days to a week. That's fucking banger. That's like insane. How is that bad? That's good. Fucking love that shit. Can't wait to see you in OnlyFangs, Max. Let's go. I'm not doing that. And now let's remove all this shit. Hyped for only Fangs, to be honest. Glad that it showcases our peers and gives them love, especially with the proximity voice chat add-on. Hopefully Blizzard realizes there's big value in supporting add-ons like that. I don't think Blizzard should support any add-ons. They should remove all add-ons from my game. Dude, honestly, I thought about doing only Fangs just to like see if I could bear Classic. And it'd probably be good for viewership. But the only problem is I just wouldn't have enough time. I'm pretty sure people are going to be playing like a lot during that. I mean, I'd only be able to play like a couple hours a day. And I also don't even know if it would be fun. I'd probably quit. I just can't do Classic leveling, man. It just makes me want to blow up. You might dig the RP stuff they're doing. Nah, I don't know, man. I also don't know any of those dudes. So it's not like I'm hanging out with the boys. Just a bunch of strangers. When does it start? The 21st? Oh, I have a sponsored stream on the 21st anyway. Max, have you plugged the new Demon Slayer merch Liquid has? No, but I should. That's a good point. I have to change my interview up a little bit. Hello. Hello. Apparel up for the interview. Don't make Mr. John Liquid mad. They'll never get me. Should I just go put like a Liquid hat on or something? I could do that. Dude. You already copped so much of it. I mean, let's check it out. In sponsor voice. It's Liquid Apparel. Wait, that's not how you spell apparel. It's not merch, guys. It's apparel. It's a Demon Slayer. I don't know what Demon Slayer is, but I can tell you that this bomber jacket looks absolutely insane. What does the other side look like? How do you turn it around? Okay. I mean, that looks kind of insane. Not gonna lie. It's probably just some anime shit, right? Yeah, W. That is a crazy looking Sherpa. So we got jackets, we got keycaps. Got a little crew neck. That actually looks kind of good. Like that. Dude, I didn't get any. Did they? Usually they send me stuff. They didn't send me anything for this, did they? Let me see. Yo. Someone in chat said, proud weeb, this shit's gas. Well, you should buy it, dude. And make sure you use code maximum at checkout. You get 1,000... No, I was about to make some shit up. You don't get anything. I don't think that's a thing. Max, are you watching Arcane? Nah, it doesn't do it for me. I will say I have I loved cartoons as a kid, but pretty much anything animated just doesn't do it for me as an adult. Hasn't done it for whatever reason. So that like anything anime, even like IP that I like, if there's like a comic like cartoon or something of it that's like even really well liked, that's just not my shit. Have you watched BoJack Horseman? Nah. I don't really know why that is. I think I'm like compelled more by, and this is probably true of video game acting too. Like I'm just more compelled by seeing an actual actor be like an absolute beast. Like I love that. It's not that the content isn't good. It just doesn't do it for me. I usually don't. I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy it either. I just usually don't gravitate towards stuff like that. Anime is a weird one too, because like I've actually heard people say that like anime is pretty sick, but dude, honestly, this sounds so stupid, but like some of the worst takes I've ever seen in my life have been like almost exclusively from people with anime avatars on Twitter. And I just don't want that to happen to me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that can just happen to you if you start watching anime, or like, I don't even think it's like if you watch anime, you have takes like that, but certainly everyone who has takes like that loves anime. So it's like something's there. You just can't risk it. You never watched Dragon Ball Z? Yeah, I've had this conversation before. Yeah, I watched like OG Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid. That was awesome. I watched Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid. That was awesome. Pokemon, like the super normie shit. That was fun. I was down more with cartoon stuff as a kid. I just haven't gravitated towards it as an adult, really. Someone said in chat, as an anime enjoyer, it is a dangerous game I play every day. So we're going to have to change up a little bit of the interview. For you guys who have been here the last couple days, and we've kind of just been like changing some of the questions and stuff like that. So Blizzard did bring up a good point in that like I was going to have them introduce themselves and kind of give them an idea and be like, you know, like, okay, you guys are some raid designers. Well, like, you guys probably haven't done interviews before. At least I don't think either of them have. But, like, there's a lot of people in my chat who love raids. And if there's a way that you could, like, you know, if there's some bosses you guys have been involved with that you're proud of, like, are there any bosses? Like, what bosses would those be? Because then now all the thousands of you will get... You'll have related to their work in some way. And you would maybe be more familiar with the people who are answering these questions. But... Blizzard doesn't. So, do you guys remember Skarn? So, Blizzard, rightfully so, doesn't really want any dev public facing to have public ownership of whether they worked on or did a boss and having that be public at all. Which kind of makes it a little harder to do this interview, but I also totally respect that, and have to change some of the questions up a little bit, I think, but I think there's good enough reason for them to feel that way, and so basically not going to assign any ownership to any bosses, or who the fuck is at my door, man? What's going on here? That's 2 doorbells. Someone's, oh, okay. It's a shipment guy. I got a shipment. I just had to sign for... Dude, I don't even know what this what this shipment was. What? I'm gonna look up this company. Dude, that's so interesting. It's this company called Puzzle Potato. And it's Escape Room Adventures at Home, but it was just DHL shipped to me. What the fuck? Someone sent me some shit. Who knows? We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Address leaked? Huh? You just open unknown packages from people you don't know? I didn't open anything. Okay, so... Yeah, so what I was saying before that guy rudely rang my doorbell. You know, they have some reservations about that, and I think that's totally fair. Like, basically, there's one time in recent memory where there was a person that was known to have made a boss, or a community has assumed that they created a boss, and then that boss got nerfed, and the timing of that nerf had nothing to do with that person, but that's not even really relevant. How the community treated this person, this developer, after that was, I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of the screenshots of like when he was in Twitch chat or whatever, but it was like completely ridiculous. So even though I think having either of these people mention bosses that they've worked on that they're proud of to maybe help relate you to them, so you kind of have a better idea of who's answering these questions because maybe you've interacted with their work. I'm not going to do that at all, and I'm also going to remove a few questions that specifically imply that any of them worked on a specific fight, which is going to tank the interview a little bit, but I understand it. Still going to be great. Didn't he deactivate his Twitter and everything? Oh yeah, it was 100% like made sense too. Like it was fucking insane. Just permaban Dixon chat instead. No, it didn't happen in this chat. It happened like anywhere this guy went. It happened on Twitter, attacking the guy personally. So yeah, can't be doing that. Unfortunate degenerates ruin it for everybody. I don't really understand why they're not allowed to tell on bosses that on the past that they worked on. If it's the current tier bosses or upcoming ones, okay. It's because people will harass them if they just didn't like the boss. Dude, you may not be able to relate to this, but some people who play video games a lot are like fucking cooked. Like some people use games as a form of entertainment, and some people have just like turned it into like the only thing that matters to them, and they don't view, like, it's hard to relate to this again, but like they don't view a lot of these people as just people with jobs that are trying to do a good job. It's like the game means so much more to them than you could realize. It's like their life kinda, which is really unhealthy. And then they have a really unhealthy relationship with developers and people making the game. It's not like a normal relationship, and they usually haven't had jobs. They don't understand jobs. They don't see those people as humans. They see them as this potentially antagonistic thing. It's really weird. And it's hard to relate to if you're not like that or know someone like that, but they certainly exist. Check the Wowhead comments. They're permanently there. So totally reasonable. Also, we're gonna see how this this thing works. So I don't have one of these things made this time. This was like an example of a one-on-one interview. This is going to be a 4-person interview. It's going to be me and Scott, and then it's going to be the 2 encounter designers that we're working with. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, but I'm not going to like have their names on screen because I don't really know how to do that. So I'm going to just have like Frank do that in post on the YouTube video, probably. So it'll all be good. I'm just gonna do like this, and then when they come on, I'm gonna put them all in a box, and then I'm gonna make my box like this part, and then it'll all fit on the screen, and it'll be amazing. I think they may still be able to speak to design philosophy. I mean, 90% of the questions are fine. It's just like... I think the biggest holdup was I sent them a bunch of questions, and then a lot of it was like general raid design, and a literal point of feedback they had was like, can you ask some more questions specifically about a specific boss so everyone would feel involved? So then I added those questions, and then I sent them those questions, and they're like, we would like it for you to not imply that anyone was like solely responsible for any particular boss. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I totally get why, but it's like those two things contradict each other, but it is fucking hype and all good. It's going to be sweet. So you're just doing what you did for your last 4-person interview? Wait, did I do a... Have I done a 4-person interview before? With who? You linked it, but like links don't do anything. They don't work. I mean, let me just like check my YouTube. YouTube maximum. Do I just type like search, just interview, and then it'll show all my... That's not 4-person. That's not 4-person. That's not 4-person. That's 2. It's the last day. Oh, I passed it? Which one is it? Morgan Day, class bus, new system. Oh, it's right here. Okay, what did I do during the last one? All right, chat, we got it. I literally just screen shared my Zoom. Okay. That's super easy to do. We can... Frank didn't even put the names on there or anything. That's fine. Fuck it. That's that. I mean, that is peak easy, so... Just do that and set a liquidy background in Zoom. I don't know what you're talking about. It'll be fine. Damn, dude, you're looking slim after that flashback. When was this? It says 1 year ago, but YouTube, like... Oh, it was a little bit. It was like a year. I mean, yeah, I've lost 40 pounds and gained like 10 pounds of muscle since then. So very, very, yeah, even in just a year and 3 or 4 months. It's the beard diff. No, I was also just definitely heavier then too. Max, do you exercise a lot or just change eating habits? I do intense exercise every day, and I eat the exact same thing every day. For almost a year. Except for when we were at the race. Also, you trim down the beard. I've had a long beard recently, though. You can still tell that I'm a lot lighter than I was here. You can just see it in my face, even without the beard. W. Scott, is he wearing a liquid jersey? Okay, well that's something I can't happen. I didn't feel like throwing on liquid stuff, but if he's gonna wear liquid stuff, then I better fucking do that too, because then I'll actually be in trouble. Place a Red Bull somewhere in the background too. I can't. I hate Red Bull. Red Bull is not for humans. Only Monster. Pump Monster into my veins, buddy. All right. I wonder if my dogs will not bark during this interview like they did during the last one. Are you guys gonna bark? Oh, are you gonna show me your turkey then? Are you gonna show me your fucking turkey? Can I see it? Can I see the turkey? Ella, can I please see it? Ella. Oh, hi, Reptar. Hey, buddy. Oh, wow, Reptar. Hi. You're so big. What a good little dog. You're a little rat. Oh, I got the turkey. Dude, this thing is absolutely disgusting. You can have it. Okay. Hey, Lily. Hey, Lily, Jesus Christ. You're on camera. What are you doing? Max, do you get BarkBox? Dude, I do get, well, no free ads. I may or may not get something like or similar to BarkBox. But yeah, dude, I tried to get my agent to work with some brands like Chewy, I think was one of them. Farmer's Dog. My dogs get Farmer's Dog and like BarkBox. We've tried that. I think the problem is I think all of those companies didn't see value in advertising in the gaming space, which, well, it's not about them not seeing value. It's just like not where they're spending their marketing money right now. So that's probably the main reason. But yeah, I'd be a fucking slam dunk for those companies, I think. Dude, when I open the BarkBox at my house, my dog goes absolutely stupid. All of them go crazy for BarkBox. Could you imagine if I did that on stream? That would be like the best advertisement of all time. It would be insane. Do your dogs listen well to you? Yeah. All right, let's get this. I'm just going to remove this part. Let me just double check every question and just make sure there's not... Probably kill having chat on stream. Can't trust them. We can trust chat. I just don't really know where there would be a good spot on the screen to have it during this. And you can also just add it in post. So I think that's a good idea. Okay. I'm trying to find a few, just really making sure that there's not any questions that specifically tie either person to any specific encounter. Okay. Great. I think we have enough here. I'm going to join this call, and I'm going to be muted for a few minutes while we get everything set up, and then I'll go live with it. Stay big. All right, hello, Steven and Taylor. I have Scott with me. We are the co-GMs of Liquid, the Liquid Rating Guild, and I'm sure you guys are familiar. We're very, very familiar with your work as well. But for the chat, if you guys could just introduce yourselves individually and let them know what you guys do.
Hey, yeah, I'll jump in. My name's Taylor Sanders. I'm a lead encounter designer here on the World of Warcraft team. My job is really just to provide creative direction, specifically for raid content, and just give some guidance to designers during development, maintain consistency in how we're making raids, and make sure that the overall raid is just a good experience, start to finish.
Okay. Yeah, and my name's Steven Cavallero. I'm a senior encounter designer on the team. I started playing WoW when I was 11 years old, so getting the opportunity to work on the game and that I love has been an awesome experience. Beyond the great opportunity to actually work on the Queen Anne encounter, I've also worked on content within Vault of the Incarnates, Amir Just Told the Dream's Hope, some content in the Dragonflight dungeons. But getting to work on Anstrek in particular was something I really enjoyed because the amount of cross-team collaboration that goes into working on an end boss, and the problem solving, both in regard to like the technical implementation, but also the design philosophy that goes alongside that. It's just a really unique and fun experience.
Cool. Love to hear that. And Taylor, you said you're more working on like the overall structure of raids now. I know like in the past we had talked about like you loving and wanting to talk about like specific bosses. Like was that like, have you moved from that to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I remember last time we talked at like BlizzCon, right, a few years ago. And yeah, these days I mostly provide just kind of direction for raid encounters. I try to give feedback for individual encounter designers working on bosses. Make sure that our difficulty curves are looking correct, throughout all of our difficulties. And just try to make sure that we're delivering the coolest raid experience. We really view raids as a holistic experience, right, that you go in for a few hours with your raid group at night, and I just try to make sure we're delivering the story, delivering the fantasy, and that the raid is really firing on all cylinders.
Sweet, awesome. So I'm gonna get into actually difficulty curve like pretty much right away then. So last raid in Amirdrasil, I think maybe for the first time in a while, we had like this big wall situation. Like there were guilds at Mythic Tindral that normally were not at Mythic Tindral. I think Ian in an interview had mentioned like that was partially due to Tindral being super, super hard, but also had to do with having maybe bosses like Laredar, Naimu being a little, or Nimue, sorry, I always pronounce that wrong, being a little bit like less challenging, and those guilds being farther in the raid than they should have been at that point. This raid that kind of happened again, there's less bosses, but like that jump from Rashanan to Brood Twister specifically was huge. So you said you work a lot on raid. How much time does it take, and what is kind of the process for determining a good difficulty curve for the raid?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for the overall raid, we try to ensure that there's something that players can sink their teeth into on every difficulty, right, as the first boss, and that scales, across the spectrum to the end boss. Especially in Mythic, that end boss has to be something that all of you guys find compelling. That is a challenge for the very best of the best, and making a challenge for the top guild and the top raiding guild in the world is a really unique problem. There's a lot of work that goes into the general curve. I think to your specific points, bosses 3 and 4 in Nerebar Palace probably underwhelmed from a difficulty perspective. We would have liked those to provide a little bit more of a challenge for guilds that are not inside the Race to World First scene, but maybe guilds that are your everyday mythic guild, right? So that they had a little bit more to chew on throughout the tier. So I think it wasn't so much that Kaiveza and Brood Twister were completely out of band on launch, but that we would have preferred Rashanan and Sakran to offer a more significant challenge for longer in the tier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Yeah, the next question I had was for Steven. After exiting this tier, we always talk as a guild about the raid, and it turned out that basically everyone in the guild thinks that Webblades is the hardest mechanic of all time, which is crazy because you think about that mechanic in a vacuum and it doesn't seem that hard. But my question is just how difficult is it to find points in a fight to make a mechanic that simple become the hardest mechanic ever in a Race to World First?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. I think this really speaks to one of our design pillars, which is simple is beautiful. Like two things together are almost always greater than the sum of their parts, and it's kind of the secret sauce of encounter design. So creating readable problems that are individually understandable and simple so that players can come up with cool solutions when all those simple problems get put together, that is the goal of encounter design. So a lot of time is spent on overlaps like that. Our amazing UX team, they're absolutely critical in terms of testing those overlaps and finding the most fun, interesting, and challenging variations of them. As an example of a mechanic that actually didn't stand up to having fair timing, I actually have a question for you. Did you notice that a mythic mechanic was just straight up removed from Phase 2 a week before launch? It was in the Dungeon Journal for months, and then it just vanished. And I never saw anyone mention it. I'm curious if you guys noticed.
This is a Siori question.
Tank one? Was it the tank one where the tank swapped portals with the mob dying? That one? Yeah, we were planning our tank comp around it. We were like, well, Blood DK doesn't look that good because if the ads are grippable, you're gonna have the problem where the Blood DK just randomly swaps side. So we were planning around that, and we did notice that had disappeared.
Interesting. Yeah. So the reason why that mechanic was removed is because of that testing and making sure that a simple problem didn't overcomplicate in a way that we didn't intend it to. And with that mechanic, when you would kill a devoted worshiper, there was like a cosmic void rift that would open above them, and then an asteroid would crash down on the play space, and that was the thing the tank had to soak, and they had to take that through the portal to get rid of that debuff before it exploded and killed everyone. So the reason why that was there was because we wanted to put an incentive for tanks to have to do a swap at some point, which turned out to even not be necessary. The problem with it, the reason why it just ultimately was cut, was because it didn't fit with the rhythm of the other abilities going on at that moment. Like, Rest was asking players to get far away from the edge of the platform. The Devoted Worshipper, which you had to kill in order to beat a timer on a cast, did not allow you to play around the timing of that. So if you happened to kill the Worshipper when Rest was going out, what was the tank really supposed to do at that point? How could they soak the asteroid and be in position to not get yanked? And of course there are some solutions to that. For example, Priest yanking the tank back onto the platform, stun immunities, but it ultimately just wasn't fun. Testing that overlap, it never got to the point where we liked it, and we just felt like the encounter was better off without it, and I know we're really glad that we ship without it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have enjoyed doing that one on my Guardian Druid.
You would have just gotten rescued over and over again, just like the actual rest. That's good.
Yeah, so the kind of a small follow-up, but like, can you describe the process from your guys' end about like watching the race to world first and trying to like, I guess, because you can't just shut off and enjoy the race as just a race. Like, you were constantly looking at the bosses thinking like, have we maybe made this a little too hard, a little too easy? Like, how difficult is it during the race to just sit back and like be like, this boss is killable, we know this is killable, they can do it? Because Queen Ansarak, I think a lot of the people in the community were expecting to get nerfed before it actually went down in the end, and then you guys held off big time nerfing it, and turned out it was killable.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as I mentioned before, our UX team is like really critical for building that kind of confidence about an overlap. Sometimes we even test exact overlaps over and over again to ensure that they're possible, to ensure that we sort of understand all the different pieces of that overlap, and the overlap with like web blades and liquefy and frothy toxin and such in phase one. Yeah, that's an example of one of those overlaps where we tested that a lot, and so there was confidence that those types of things were doable. Like a very specific example, during one of our tests, a UX analyst analyzed an overlap in phase one and gave a suggestion about how to tweak it by like a few seconds of difference to make it more engaging, more fair, more fun. And similarly, there was a ton of feedback that was given to fine-tune melee versus ranged experiences with some of the overlaps. Actually, another big change that happened during the course of development, the frothy toxin debuff originally was going to be like an explosion around the player when it expired. There was going to be a rim around every single player after you did the leap over the wave, and then you're going to have to all spread out while you're spreading out of the big rim that's on the person that popped it. And that was cut mainly because it really was not an enjoyable experience for melee, trying to get back onto the boss, but also all spreading out, but also web blades are happening. It's like, that's just too much, and it breaks the rhythm of the fight. So that's the type of stuff that we look at a lot. I think to that end, in regards to the nerfing question, and watching the race, because of the type of testing we do and the confidence that builds with specific mechanical overlaps, we always want to give the benefit of the doubt to players that something is doable on live. Of course, we aren't perfect, right? We're just humans too. Sometimes we miss, for example, the raw outgoing damage in a specific moment in combination with an overlap or something like that has a lot of layers of difficulty competing with each other, or the DPS downtime it might be longer than expected. So sometimes considerations are made for an adjustment in those cases, but it's always about, at the end of the day, what we think is going to be the best experience for players if we do make an adjustment, first and foremost.
Cool. I actually wanted to like kind of add that. So you mentioned a lot of like the mechanical difficulty. Like, can you possibly spread out for this in time? Can you live this amount of damage? That's like one side of throughput, like the throughput that's coming into your character. how closely do you watch or have to watch play out a boss like Ansarek, where you are, watching how much damage we can do? Because I can tell you, we never said this boss is unkillable. There were some other guilds that were saying the boss is unkillable, but there wasn't a lot of us in the guild confidently being like, we definitely have the damage to kill this. Like, I was not confident that we could kill this boss until we really started optimizing on a purely single target fight with that much potential optimization in P3. I guess, how much from your perspective was it just sitting there looking like, do they have enough? Like, were you confident from a pretty early point? Like, no, they actually can find the damage if they just do this, because we who do this for a living, right? Like, we didn't know, because you never really know how much damage you can get out of a situation like that. I guess just kind of describe that process and talk about the other side of tuning, of like sitting there in the race and maybe watching us optimize and trying to follow along with that.
Yeah, I think Ansarek is definitely an interesting example of this. We knew that Phase 3 had a tremendous amount of opportunity for optimization. Like a really, really large amount. The amount of target switching that goes on in that phase, kind of gave us the confidence based on our, internal analytics and what we understand about what players are physically capable of, that it was doable.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we have discussions, right, about that as we're watching or whatnot, but ultimately, I think we felt like, as we were seeing the progress being made there in chunks at times, right, that it was sort of proving what we thought, which was that the optimization was there. And this is actually another reason why we were excited to have even Phase 1 be on a timer and not a health threshold, because it meant that every little bit of damage was going to matter in that final moment. And so seeing that extra 0.5% come off in Phase 1, was another example of us having the confidence that there is more damage here to be taken off, and it matches what we expect, from our internal analytics. So, it was a very exciting moment for sure to watch, but we definitely discussed it and had confidence that the optimization was there.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'll just jump in too and say, part of the privilege of like making these encounters, right, especially at the cutting edge, is we get to see the best and the best make them. And there are definitely times where we've done a lot of work to try to ensure that the encounters are beatable and that they're within range, but that's a knife's edge, right, for tuning in a lot of situations. It's really a pleasure seeing you guys find the solutions. A mantra on the team is, they'll find it, even if it looks like they won't. You guys always tend to come up with interesting solutions, strategies that we never once believed were possible. So it's fun to see you guys find the damage or find the strategies, even when we think it may be barely in reach.
Okay. That's really cool. I'm wondering, I think this has to be something you guys think about all the time, especially probably Taylor from your end. But you guys have a pretty impossible task. The delta of like guild skill level that encounter Mythic is pretty massive, right? Like from the people that do this literally for a job and people who do this a few days a week after work as a side hobby thing that are doing the same content. I guess, what is it like finding the line for tuning where you are making something that can challenge people who are doing this with their sole goal in life is to do this as good as possible, and then also knowing when that challenge needs to be either nerfed or, like, I guess now you guys have the scaling buff, which I think has been working pretty well, like where that can naturally nerf a lot of that difficulty as well. But I guess, can you describe maybe the struggle or the just finding the balance of tuning between the best in the world and the average Mythic player?
Yeah, the process is difficult, right? You described pretty well that we have at least 2 player groups, right, within Mythic. We have Race to World folks, and you can even extend to that sometimes to top 100 guilds or Hall of Fame, and then we have other Mythic guilds who aren't in the Race to World first. They're not playing as a full-time job, and meeting the demand and for both of those audiences is tough. Landing the experience in a way that suits both of those audiences is difficult. We try to make sure that when you log in, you always have something you can achieve. And in the past, we've used systems like the strands to help with that, alleviate the difficulty over time. We find it's best if the power progression comes from your character, right, in a positive way, as opposed to nerfs. We have used nerfs as well to land things, after the Race to World First has ended or after Hall of Fame has ended, to try to make challenges more approachable and reasonable for the audience that's getting to that encounter at the time. But yeah, it's really difficult. We talked earlier about some places where we're looking to smooth the difficulty over time, in comparison to 10.2 and 11.0. But yeah, it's something that's very top of mind for us. In general, for feedback, I use like a triangle of feedback is what I call it sometimes. We look a lot at our internal data. So just a quantitative understanding of how many guilds are at each boss encounter, success rates, how those are moving over time, how many people are graduating out of a specific difficulty into another. We also look at our own intuition, our own experiences, right, as we go home and raid at night, trying to understand how the raid feels, comparing notes in the morning, talking about the raid with each other as designers. And then the last and most important is obviously player feedback. We're always listening to forums, internal and otherwise, from our coworkers who are playing the raid as well. And trying to make sure that we're landing the difficulty in a good place, not only when the raid launches, but as the tier goes on, week by week.
Cool, thank you.
This next question's for Steven, but if you could just describe the process or maybe even the struggle of trying to design boss mechanics that you want to not just be dominated by weak auras. You don't want it to be like, oh, if your guild doesn't have a weak aura, this mechanic's not doable. Like, how do you come up with a mechanic that doesn't just get solved by a weak aura?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are obviously cognizant of weak auras existing. I think ultimately our main goal is to design a mechanic that is, on some level, just intuitive and fun as the core basis of what we're starting with. And, in terms of feeling like we're limited or whatever by weak auras, it's more about the mechanic itself, feeling like with or without a weak aura, players can understand and ultimately solve it in a way that's interesting for them. In terms of the amount of affordance and time we give players, we think about that a lot, and we're continuing to think about that as we develop future content to ensure that, no matter what add-on suite you have, that the content is approachable for the particular difficulty or player band that it's targeted at. Taylor, do you have anything specific there you want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't think it fundamentally limits, making compelling encounters. We made a lot of really cool encounters in the past that I don't think have relied strongly on weak auras. But something we try to keep in mind anytime we're making a mechanic, anytime we're designing an encounter, is how it's going to manifest in gameplay, right? We want mechanics to manifest in a way where everyone feels involved. This can be limited both by how much add-on usage is going to be involved in solving that problem. Another way this manifests as a problem is if an entire mechanic is solved by one person, right? We don't necessarily, especially as difficulty increases, a mechanic to be like quarterbacked by one person and everyone else feel like they're out in the cold, right, in terms of the gameplay. So yeah, we try to really keep in mind how a mechanic is going to be solved. Sometimes it's difficult to know, right, because we're designing like interesting problems. We're not necessarily designing solutions to those problems. We let you guys figure that out. But we try to understand when we are designing a problem, just how that's going to manifest in terms of the gameplay and how people will approach it.
Cool. Kind of on that note, I think initially a couple tiers ago, private auras were kind of introduced as a potential solution to some weak aura heavy things. I think bad examples of like how there was a negative interaction in the past would have been, you have to press a macro or some kind of like action to make that a hoop you have to jump through to make a normal weak aura work for a specific mechanic. But in this raid, that I think there were actually a fair amount of private auras, but I think they went by relatively unnoticed. If you were to probably ask most Mythic players like how were the private auras this raid, they would be like, what private auras, right? I'm interested in, now that private auras have come to that place, are you guys happy with the current state of it as like a solution to weak aura heavy stuff?
Yeah, this is a good question. It's definitely something we're trying to solve in partnership with all of you, right? In partnership with the community. The fundamental problem here is we don't want players to have to, log into WoW and feel like they have. We want them to be able to play their characters, right, without a suite of add-ons and weak aura package, and feel like they can have a good chance of approaching an encounter, and be find success or defeat at the hands of their own skill, not at the hands of whether they have their weak aura package updated appropriately, or whether they're hitting a macro. So we introduced private auras back in Dragonflight, and over that time we've learned a lot from player feedback, from our own experience playing the game. I think that we landed. I agree. I think we landed in a better place with Narrowbar Palace. We had a few weak auras that I think went pretty much unnoticed. Like, there were a lot of weak auras. I think there were 3 on Kaiveza, and all of those felt pretty good. And there was one we even removed in PTR as a result of player feedback from
Ovanax.
Brood Twister.
Yeah,
and that was a great call out. Encourage people to get on PTR and give us feedback like that, because it directly affects the quality of the encounters. And I think we made the right decision in pulling back there.
Cool. How much emphasis do you guys place either creating a specific encounter or someone looking over every encounter about accessibility and design? Like, Smolderon, some people had an issue where it's like, we have this big red boss and it's a red room and there's red stuff everywhere. Nimue, for sure, it's like there's just green everywhere. Like the boss is supposed to, it's a green boss, supposed to do green things, but like, I don't know, like, is it a challenge sometimes to make a boss look like what it's supposed to look like, but also have the mechanics be clear and concise?
Yeah, it is a challenge. As you mentioned, Fire Lords are always going to be sitting on fiery thrones, right? So Fire Guy does red stuff a lot of the time. It is a challenge. We get a lot of feedback on this all the time. We have a great user research team at Blizzard who also does feedback on things related to, like, color blindness and arachnophobia, and other conditions that might affect gameplay. A step we took in Narrowbar Palace that I think helped in some circumstances was we connected our VFX artists and our who are making things like the swirls and the spell visuals, right, that show the mechanics, with our dungeon artists who are making the textures on the floors for the encounter spaces, and just made sure that there was more contrast there. I think we can continue to get better, but it caught several instances of this that I think ended up having a much better experience for players. And in 11.1, we actually have a, like the swirl that indicates like a missile is incoming or a damage event is incoming.
Yeah.
It's used a lot of places in the game. We have a different version of this coming in 11.1 that we'd love to hear feedback on the PTR. It'll be used in Season 2 dungeons and in the new raid. So
that's huge.
We're hoping players will check it out, give us feedback. And really, we're trying to make gameplay easier. We know it can be very chaotic. I play a lot of melee classes myself, so I'm always getting hit by something that I didn't see. So we're hoping this will alleviate the issue there.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, like as an example with Ansarek, we knew that she was going to use a Void and Web and Poison, and very early on, we worked with our excellent dungeon art team to ensure that, like Taylor was saying, depending on where she was going to use which ability kits, the arena would have subtly different coloring and shading to allow for those kits to pop better. So we knew that in Phase 1 she was going to be using mostly Web and Poison, and we wanted to make sure that the floor was conducive to that. And in Phase 3 we knew that she was going to use Void, and while there is still purple in Phase 3, that floor is actually much more like muted than it was originally at one point in development, to really try to make sure that the contrast was reasonable. Yeah, so
nice.
The next question we had was kind of where class meets raid. So DK in general doesn't have like a raid buff, so it doesn't have a mandatory raid slot. How much from like a raid POV do you guys like think about, oh well, we want DK to be in the raid, we want every class to see play in the raid? Like, how many grippable ads does a boss have? Like, because that's basically DK's way into the raid. If something's grippable, there's only one class that can do it. How much does that have like effect on like the raid design in general, and does it have even more effect on the last boss specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in general we try to make sure there's a variety of utility problems throughout the raid. I don't know if we're always looking at unique solutions like DKs. DKs have some cool spells that really nobody else can do. But hopefully every class, right, has a variety of buttons that we can enable. Really part of the core responsibility of an encounter designer is not to make some monster that just stomps your face in and does it in a cool way, although hopefully we do that a few times. But also that we're enabling class buttons, right? We want players of the heroes. We want you to be able to solve interesting problems in interesting ways. So we try to provide a number of different types of dispels, a number of different types of situations where steam-peating roar or other speed boosts are effective, and just provide like a large landscape across the raid of utility situations where you can really be rewarded for taking the right talent, or that you can really feel special for picking the spec that you did. You might be the only monk in the raid, and your Ring of Peace feels amazing, on the penultimate fight of the raid. So we're just always looking for opportunities to do that, and sometimes we'll even do passes, late in the development cycle to just make sure we have enough instances throughout the raid for players to feel really powerful.
Yeah, no, that's great. Just another question we had as well was, has there been any fight you've designed where like you guys thought of a solution for a certain mechanic overlap or a certain just how the boss is killed that the community solves in a completely different way, like you didn't even consider it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Taylor kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. We really look at our job as designing, problems and making sure that players are the ones that are coming up with the solutions. An example specifically on Ansarek for this was the bombs on heroic Ansarek being Venn diagrammable and then like perfectly timing the pops. We did know that was possible, that it would be a potentially alternate way to do the mechanic, but it was still really cool to have those two potential solves and put that into the wild and see which one players gravitated to more. And also, it's actually why the mythic mechanic exists of staggering the pops. It was to inject another layer of a problem into that to kind of switch up the strategy in terms of solving that mechanic. So, for example, even with that, the exact spacing and strategy of where those bombs were placed on Mythic and how they were popped, that was very emergent. Our testing teams did that, but with some different spacing and timing than how exactly you wound up solving it yourselves, and so it was cool to see that happen.
That's great.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was told we have one more question left, so I'm having to pick a good one here. Okay, I don't know. This is like kind of a personal one for me that I think is interesting, and maybe will give some good insight for everyone. So when you guys start making a boss, whether it's your job or you're working as a group, but you've been given like a concept for a boss, do you start by making that fight on Mythic and going down, or do you start with the very, very base version of that boss on LFR normal and then add or anything in between? Like, what is that process like?
Yeah, we actually target heroic first. That's generally the target. It kind of offers the best look at the core gameplay hook of the fight, and then we go from there. That doesn't mean that sometimes we wind up with Mythic right out of the gate, and we call it accidentally Mythicing, and then we have to
Cool.
pare it down a little bit. But yeah, ultimately our UX team is really good at understanding the play experience, not just at their natural level of play, but also at like all levels of play, and that also helps us understand where we're landing with our first passes and how to push that up or down as needed.
Cool. Yeah, I actually wouldn't have expected that. I was expecting it to be normal or Mythic, but not heroic. But that actually makes a ton of sense. So, all right. Well, I think we've been told that's all the time we have, unfortunately. So it was great talking to you guys. This is actually, I think, my favorite interview I've ever done, because I've done a lot with like Morgan and Ian, who have a great perspective on the overall outlook of the game. But I just love talking to people that you could tell that you guys genuinely love what you do, right? You can hear that in the way you answer every question, and I think it's important for the community to see that, and for people like us who work on it all the time to see that there's so much passion that goes into to what you guys do. Because like obviously we love doing and figuring out raid bosses like anyone else, and it seems like you guys would be doing exactly that if you didn't have exactly the job you have right now, right? You're doing it's a passion project. So this was super informative and really nice for us. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for
absolutely.
having us.
You know, thanks for having us. It's an incredible privilege, you know, to make WoW and you know, to watch you guys play. All the guilds involved in the Race to World First. So we're congrats again on the first world first kill, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, is that what Microsoft Teams sounds like? All right, dude, that was sweet. W. Scott, dude, you guys were all talking about Scott's background. Scott had all the swords, which, by the way, didn't we pull up Scott's like the last interview I did with Scott on my stream, and it was like he had like half of the swords, so he's just been steadily collecting swords. Wait, someone messaged me and said, "Dang, saying Ian and Morgan have no passion." That's not what I meant. That's not what I guess they could take it like that. This is my favorite interview I've done. It's great to see the passion. Oh, I guess that is kind of indirectly slandering Ian and Morgan. But I don't mean like they don't have passion. It's just like we're asking them general questions about everything in the game, right? They wouldn't have gotten to the point they got into if they weren't passionate about what they were doing. But like it's a different feeling talking to someone that does a very specific thing about that very specific thing, which happens to be the thing that me and Scott exclusively play the game for. I've had opportunities to speak to raid designers at BlizzCon, like Taylor was talking about, and I just talked to them for like so long actually, and it's just we both just love this thing, you know. Interestingly, Ian also is super huge raiding nerd. You guys probably know his history. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I think I've gotten more out of conversations with people who are designing raids now than I have talking to higher ups at Blizzard. Not that that's any flame or slander. I just relate to it more. I think we are more interested in a very specific thing, and I don't think that's a bad thing to Morgan or Ian specifically. But yeah, that was really cool. That was so nice. I've never spoken to Steven before. I've never, but obviously he's been there for a while and it's really good. You could tell about the way that he thought. Do you guys like that? He went really in depth about the way that he designed. Wish it was longer. Yeah, I didn't get to ask. Honestly, I think we got most of the good questions. Here's what we skipped. There's a couple of good ones that we missed, but here's one. Like, I won't tell you guys the story again, but when I spent a few hours at Blizzard, I was able to talk to a few designers. The thing I found the most interesting was that they said about 70% or so of the stuff they do is assigned to them or is their job, and then they have a lot of leeway to just make really cool stuff that they find fun. And then I just wanted to ask each of them if there's anything as raid designers they've made that qualifies as something that they just thought was really fucking awesome, and then they made it. That isn't super like informative to like the overall community, but it's just one thing that I think is really cool. I really like hearing people talk about things that they love doing, and I found that a very interesting part of working at Blizzard, and I just wondered if that was the thing. But I messaged Scott, and I had him ask this one early because I thought it was really good. One of them was a one tank question. I'm glad we not like glad we skipped it, but it was basically the question was, have you ever designed a boss, or do you like the idea of designing a boss that's 1 or like 3 tankable and not 2 tankable? And I think the answer is definitely no, and they told you that this tier when they immediately nerfed those bosses. What's some other one? Do you ever design fight profiles, like the type of damage that's going out or the type of damage the boss requires, 2-4 target spread and stack, to highlight certain specs or powerful niche ways? I'm glad this didn't get asked, because it's going to get a very similar answer to the DK question, which is like the answer is like, yeah. And I think it's pretty clear that through the way they make bosses, yeah, right? How many single target bosses do you in a raid, right? Not many. Pure single. How many like cleave bosses? Usually like 1 or 2. How many, like they clearly do that. Okay. Scott wanted to ask, I think this is actually my question that I assigned him. Has there been a boss mechanic they conceptualized and thought would be awesome, but had to cut because of technical limitations? And if so, do you have any examples? Okay. Oh, and then this one I wanted to ask, this would have been a great thing to get an answer to, but I don't think they would have given us an answer. So this would have been like we had way extra time, and I just was trying to get a little bite of information. But Ian in a recent interview seemed to indicate that you guys were interested in more smaller Onyxia's Lair kind of raids To clarify, is this more the tier 11 2 to 3 raids released, but basically the same tier, or individual raids released in 0.5 or 0.7 patches similar to Crucible of Storms? I think they're just not going to give an answer to that, most likely, because it's like they usually just never talk about stuff that's coming in recent patches, but I think there would also be room for them to be like, I think this would be cool, even though they're not announcing anything. They did give us new info. They're basically creating a new swirly. There's which is great. I mean, if you look at WoW swirlies, some of them famously are bigger or smaller than they appear, and it's not super obvious where they are. And if they make that a more clearly defined thing, like the default WoW swirly being improved is... Now, if you're... I don't know if this is a change that matters too much to, like, the casual player. Like, there's usually a big rift in understanding in Twitch chat and YouTube and stuff like that for, like, what people in the game actually care about. And there's this, like, massive silent majority of people that just, like, fuck off in WoW and just have fun doing whatever, and they don't care as much about the gameplay stuff. But for people who are gameplay focused, like me and a lot of you, the swirly change is extremely impactful. Like, if you were to say, like, a change in WoW this patch is that all ground damage effects or swirlies are more clarified, that would be one of the best patch notes of all time. And that's basically what they said they're testing on trying, so that's cool. Yeah, I mean, we actually got through most of the good ones. The other ones were there seems to be less percentage-based push bosses in the last few raids. And he did kind of ask this. He mentioned this earlier on Ansrek, especially since Season of Discovery, Sanctum of Domination, where there was a few cases of stopping DPS for a long time. And is there something you think about on a boss? And is there still room for a cool way to have a health percent based push on a hard boss? Because there has not been one in a very long time. Quick ones at the end of time. What was your favorite boss you've ever made? That's just a fun thing. Like, or maybe not boss you made, but boss you were involved with. It's obviously very collaborative. And this raid was much more linear than the wing-style raids we've had since Nyalotha and Nathria. Does this help create a better difficulty curve in theory, or was it trying something new? Again, these are all significantly lower. I feel like every question we asked was kind of a fucking banger. I feel like every single question was like a pretty hard-hitting, good, straight-to-the-point question. And right where the interview cut off, there was starting to get some less good ones. So, wahoo! Wasn't there a dungeon or a raid boss that had their swirlies changed because they were so bad and what they changed them was actually not appealing but incredibly visible? Yeah, you're talking about Denathrius. I can show you. So, limit world first Denathrius. World first how do you say that word? Denatured alcohol? Denatured alcohol? That's a fucking weird ass word. Anyways, I just had to pause to try to... Dude, is it still not going to autocomplete? You guys don't know about Denathrius? Are you kidding me? Alright, so when we killed this boss... Alright, super epic raid music. So you'll see it here. It's when these guys died, actually, right? Oh, yeah, so right there. You guys see these, like, little swirlies? So these weren't... I don't think these were super... I remember these being worse. I think it's because everyone's spread out in this PUV.
This is,
When... Oh, like maybe... Well, everyone here is just AFKing and waiting, but...
Yeah, he is getting...
Come on, show me some. My head's in the way? Oh, dude, that's great. I'm just huge right here. Guys, look at little baby fired up. Look at him. Look at little baby fired up. Alright. Alright.
Failure. Puddles again.
Right here. So, like, when you're, like, all together, I don't know, it's just, like, such a... This is a better graphic. Like, it's cooler and it looks more like the fight, but it was a little hard to see. And then, I don't even know how I'd find this, but does anyone have, like, is there, like, a YouTube video of a Sire Denathrius kill like later in the patch that I can look up real quick so you can see the difference. I remember what it looks like, but I don't actually remember. Like, let me just type Sire. Okay, super epic music again. Sire Denathrius kill. Might plus Erudite kill normal Sire Denathrius. No. Someone just uploaded our kill from my POV and just got 71k views for free, just fucking stealing content. That's insane. All right. Wait. Oh, this one's a little different. Wait, somehow Frank found it. Frank W. All right, here's what it looks like now. Okay, right there. Do you guys see the difference? I'll like split the tabs so you can see it. Nope. Please. Please. Right there. You guys see that versus that? They made a... Like, if an artist was looking at how this boss looks, they would see the one on the right and be like, that looks significantly worse than the one on the left. But if you're someone who's playing the fight, you appreciate the one on the right more than the left. And I think that's kind of just... And I asked them a question about this in the interview that they had a good answer to, but like, it's finding the balance between those two things. Ideally, you would have something that's visually clear and also looks like it should be on the fight. Right? The left isn't even that bad. I think the left one is worse during Massacre, if I remember correctly. So there's a Massacre happening in 1 second. So, like, Massacre kind of makes your... Oh, wait. I guess that timer's just wrong?
I don't know. Puddles here.
Right here. So it was... Massacre makes the room darker. Like, this is what the room normally looks like, but during Massacre, it looks like this. So when you see puddles during Massacre, it's like... That's pretty bad, right? Like, that's... not very easy to see. So part of the issue isn't even the circle. It's actually Massacre making the room darker. But why does Massacre make the room darker? Specifically to make it easier to do Massacre, right? Like Massacre, these red swords coming through, that is easier. That is more visually clear by them making the room darker. So there's a reason for it, right? Yeah, that was a cool fight. It was a banger. I kind of want to listen to a couple of their answers because during the interview, you can't really give a lot of feedback. You kind of just have to move on to the next thing. So let's do that. Let's see if I'll give you guys my feedback on some of their answers. Infinite money hack. I get people that say this all the time. They're like, it's really weird that you're reacting to your own interview. But like, I don't even understand that because... like, you objectively can't react to what they're saying in an interview because you just have to ask the next question. So you're unable to react to it whatsoever. Right? It's something that you can't do. There's a reason for it. All right. Here we go. They're worried Max. Well, yeah. Max, can we talk about how the first final boss of the last 3 expansions have all been absolute bangers? Razageth was horrible. If we're talking about Mythic. But Heroic Razageth was amazing, yeah. The first boss on Heroic of the last 3 expansions was incredibly good. That is very true. Max, you doing the interview really isn't for you either. You are just the medium for Blizzard to connect to the masses. Yeah, I know. I constantly make that point. Because people who used to do interviews, like a couple years ago, they would be like, all right, I'm doing an interview, but no one react to this. Reactions, guys, for me, make sure you save your reactions until after my video comes up, or make sure don't like let me get my viewership first. And I'm like, dude, that is so strange to me. Like, that just seems so counter to, you're like totally misunderstanding this. This isn't even your content. This is content for everyone that it's going through your channel. And then I've definitely gotten pushback from content creators, and they're like, you're only saying that because you have enough viewership. Like, if you were out here grinding, you wouldn't have that same perspective. Maybe that's true, but I still feel like that doesn't change my outlook on it. But I would understand a smaller creator being more protective over the views they can get and not getting dominated by a bigger one. But wow, that's the Wowhead, the guy that was really mad about Wowhead. No, this has been true for, I mean, there's been people like this for years, though. The guy that did get mad at Wowhead was very funny, though. There are two styles of interviews, either those or that are information conduits, or long-form conversationals. Long-form conversationals would be an absolute insanely good thing. I would love that. But Blizzard just doesn't do that anymore. It's they don't do the hour-long interviews. They do 30-minute quick to the point. Bro, I got told at the 30-minute mark, like, get the fuck out of here. So they're definitely, yeah. I mean, dude, could you imagine how good of content just talking about raid fights would have been with those two for another half an hour, even if it wasn't a structured interview? That would have been fucking sick. Or having one of them on our podcast would have been fucking sick. But it's just a big company, and they care too much. They want everything prepared and PR and all that shit, and it's annoying, but it's what it is. Sorry, this is off topic, but is there a way I can access the playlist you use during race? Yeah, it's on Spotify. It's called Stream Start Heaters Race to World First. It's on there somewhere. Is it more controlled before or after Microsoft, or no change? No, probably no change. I asked a guy earlier about getting a specific dev on our podcast, and I said, I'm not letting grandma out of the cage until you let them come on our podcast. And then they said, lol, she might be in the cage until next year then. I'm like, damn. You don't care about grandma? That's fucked. Alright. So let's skip past the introductions. Your work as well, but for the chat, if you guys could just introduce yourselves individually and let them know what you guys do.
Designer.
Okay.
On the deck, you know, link.
Holy. Fine. But maybe guilds that are your.
So Taylor now is on. It sounds like Taylor got a promotion. I'm not super familiar. It seemed like he kind of gave that impression, because I've spoken to Taylor before at BlizzCon. In the effort of not assigning any bosses to his particular developer, because that's something Blizzard wants to avoid for very good reason. But just know that he was involved in the creation of some absolutely fucking insane fights. And I think he is a lead now. He was like promoted to being more managerial of overall all of the fights, which is certainly very good in my opinion for the outlook of WoW. I've not had a conversation with him that wasn't like really, really good. So for sure. No, he didn't make Skarn, but also that's not relevant whether he did or not. Okay. So and then Steven I had not spoken to. It sounds like he's been here since Vault, so he's had one expansion in. He did not solely make Ansarek, but was involved. I mean, you could hear the way he talked about Ansarek. He thought about Ansarek all the time, right? And Ansarek was a great fight. Actually, that's interesting. How Ansarek on Mythic is like, I'm super biased because like we won and everything. Every other guild I watched, I don't watch people kill Ansarek anymore, but every guild I've seen kill Ansarek in the top like 20 or 30, all were like, I hate this fight, and then they killed it, and they were like, I loved it. And it was just because it was so hard. So I'm pretty sure Answer X great. But I actually haven't had enough people kill it to really know. It's definitely one of the best end bosses they've made in quite some time. Yeah, like if you compare it to like Fyrak, for example. Like Fyrak had an awesome P3. But like P2 is super problematic and P1 sucked if you're a healer. But if you weren't a healer, I thought P1 was good. But P2 was... I don't really like Fyrak P2. A lot of it is kind of... I think it missed for me. Right? And then Ansurek... P1 is a great phase. I think the P1 intermission is a great phase. P2... I want to say P2 is a great... Like, P2 has, like, swapping sides, which is really cool. It's, like, an ad phase, but, like, think about ad phases gone wrong, like Razageth. Like, it wasn't like that. It was certainly a large part of your progression, but it wasn't, like, overly dominated by P2, but, like, you needed to be consistent to see any farther in the fight. Like, P2, you could say P2 might only exist because you just have to get up to P3. That's, like, kind of true. Like, P2 could have been better, but I don't... Like, saying that it's as bad as Fyrak P2 is... That's wild. And then P3 Ansurek was great. P2 was annoying comp-wise. Oh, you're talking about Fyrak. Yeah, I was about to say, I don't understand how comp matters in P2 at all, but... So I guess Fyrak does... Or, Ansurek does seem pretty good. I don't know, it's really hard to tell. I think the boss is awesome. It was really fun to problem solve that fight. But that doesn't always line up with the fight being really fun to play.
Everyday mythic, completely out of...
Okay, cool. Let's see what they said.
Yeah, the next question I had was for Steven.
Wait, I already asked a question. Shit. What was the first question we asked? Oh, yeah, so... Last raid, there was a massive wall at Tindril, and in an interview, Morgan and Ian seemed to imply that not only was Tindril a little too hard for too long, but an undertuning problem for these bosses. The same... Long story short, basically the same thing this year happened from Rashland and Brood Twister. What do? Let's see what they said.
There's a lot of work that and making a spectrum to the end boss. There's...
What is kind of the process for determining a good difficulty curve for the raid?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for the overall raid, we try to ensure that there's something that players can sink their teeth into on every difficulty, right? It's the first boss, and that scales, you know, across the spectrum to the end boss. Especially in Mythic, that end boss has to be something that all of you guys find compelling. That is a challenge for the very best of the best, and making a challenge for, you know, the top guild and the top raiding guild in the world is a really unique problem. There's a lot of work that goes into the general curve. I think
so far hasn't really said much. He just kind of explained what the curve is, which is good for an interview like this. This interview isn't for us. We understand what he's talking about, but someone who's listening to this may not.
Big points. Bosses 3 and 4 in Nerebar Palace probably underwhelmed from a difficulty perspective. We would have liked those to provide a little bit more of a challenge for...
So basically, Sikran and Rashanan were undertuned. So if you look outside of the Race World first, which I think those bosses are not made for the Race World first, I think actually, you know what? Let's look this up right now. Progstats.io, I think, is the tier stats. Nerebar Palace, Mythic, Sikran. So typical pull count 6 to 20. Typical progression time 0.5 to 1.6 hours. And this is only for guilds, I believe. This is not pugs. I mean, it could be. It's like most... I don't know exactly. Actually, maybe Progstats explains what they do. Seer progression... Okay, I don't think they actually showed here. But I'm pretty sure this is not... This is like only guild kills. In my opinion, he's saying Sikran and Rashanan weren't challenging enough for that group of people. Do you guys think that a typical pull count of 6 to 20 for a third boss is low? That sounds like pretty good. That seems really low to you. Let's think about previous expansions then. So Mirdrasil, the third boss was technically Volcaros, which was easier than this, but let's skip Mirdrasil because Mirdrasil had famously bad difficulty curve problems. Aberrus, the third boss, was either Amalgamation Chamber or Zakali Assault. I'd say Amalgamation Chamber is probably a little harder than Sikran. Vault of the Incarnates, the third boss was Taros. That was a totally... So Taros is way harder than Sikran. But also, famously, no one ever went farther than the first two bosses in Mythic because of, like, some vault shit, and they didn't want to, like, brick their vault, and the jump from 2 to 3 was so extreme that no one did Taros, and that was maybe almost bad in the opposite way, right? What was before Dragonflight? We had Sepulcher. So the third boss in the Sepulcher was like New Zymox, which was definitely harder, or DeSausage, which was a little bit harder. Okay. Previous tier, Sanctum of Domination. You had the 9. I'd say the 9 Sikran are probably pretty similar. Okay, so Sikran's a little easy. That's fine. But I don't think Sikran is super far off from third boss, to be honest with you. I think this is, like, pretty good. All right, and then we have Rashanan. So the fourth boss is 16 to 35 attempts, and it's 1.5 to 3.3 hours. Now, if you're just looking at difficulty curve, it be curving, right? Like, Rashanan's harder than the third boss by about, what, progression time? By about 2 times? Twice as hard? Twice as long to kill? Right? The curve from Sikran to Rashanan, and honestly, the curve for the first 4 bosses doesn't seem wrong to me. But then the 4th to the 5th is obviously way too big of a jump. And now keep in mind, most of this information is after the nerf. So this is actually, like, the biggest problem was Brood Twister initially. Like, I think everyone would admit Brood Twister is much less of a problem now than, like, it was in the first month. Or first 3 weeks, I think, when it was out. I'm going to say his answer is... We think Sikran... Let me listen to a little more of it and back it up a little bit.
Bosses 3 and 4 in Nerevar Palace probably underwhelmed from a difficulty perspective. We would have liked those to provide a little bit more of a challenge for guilds that are not inside the the Race to World First scene.
Okay, so they should have been a little harder. I'm not disagreeing with that. That could be fine.
Everyday mythic guild, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that they had a little bit more to chew on throughout the tier. So I think it wasn't so much that Kaiveza and Brood Twister were completely out of band on launch, but that we would have preferred Rashanan and Sikran to offer a more significant challenge for longer in the tier. Does that make sense?
Okay, so certainly Rashanan and Sikran could have been harder, but even if Rashanan is a 30 to 40 pull for pugs and Sikran is or not pugs, like those mythic guilds he's referring to, Sikran's a little harder. I still think the jump would have been astronomical, even on nerfed Brood Twister. I would say, and this is my opinion, their opinion's more important than mine, they make these fights. I actually don't know if the difficulty curve in this raid was that fucked because Rashanan and Sikran were too easy. Maybe it is in the confines of making an 8-boss raid. You need to ramp up the difficulty curve faster, which I think would have an interesting impact on the lower end community of Mythic, like people who pug the first 4 bosses. The fact that you can pug a 2-box in Mythic through half the raid is pretty good. But like in an 8-boss raid, the jump between Brood Twister and Novanax being that Rashanan's too easy means that you wouldn't be able to do that. So maybe my take here is it seems like there's 2 bosses missing between Rashanan and Brood Twister.
Like, this is like the best argument I've seen for making 10 boss raids rather than 8. Is that there's like a very, if you ever want to ask yourself like the clear need for more fights, at least one more fight, it would be this, right? Like when you make 13 boss raids, I could make arguments for some bosses not needing to be there at all. But I'm looking at an 8 boss raid where you could make a pretty legitimate argument that there should have at least been another boss in between Brood Twister or Rashinan to ramp into that. Because part of the problem with Brood Twister being too hard is that guilds that are not supposed to be at that hard boss are there already because there's only 8 bosses and they made 3 and 4 easy. Like, it's not super out of the question that a boss 4th from the end would be as hard as Brood Twister was. That happens kind of, not frequently, but not infrequently, right? So I think that's my look there. Is I think maybe I should have phrased my question differently, but I wonder I wonder if I could have asked him maybe a follow-up here and been like, how like, okay, I hear everything you're saying, but like, how does that translate? Like, maybe does adding more bosses in a raid also solve that problem? Because like, I think his response could be Amirdrasil had more bosses and had this exact same problem. But Amirdrasil, you could have also argued some early bosses were, I mean, Volcaros was way too easy, right? Okay, moving on. Yeah, absolutely. See, and that's why are you reacting to your own video? Because I just gave you all of that context, which I felt was like, I don't know, pretty fun thought process to go through. And here's what you would have got as an alternative. Ready? Here's what I can say during the interview.
And Sakron to offer a more significant challenge for longer in the tier. Does that make sense?
Ready? Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. Yeah, absolutely. On to the next one, because that's what you have to do. All right, let's listen to the next question. Cool.
Yeah, the next question I had was for Steven. After X10 this tier, we always talk as a guild about the raid, and it turned out that basically everyone in the guild thinks that Web Blades is the hardest mechanic of all time, which is crazy because you think about that mechanic in a vacuum and it doesn't seem that hard. But my question is just how, like, difficult is it to find points in a fight to make a mechanic that simple become the hardest mechanic ever in a Race to World First?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. I think, this really speaks to one of our design pillars, which is simple is beautiful. Like, two things together are almost always greater than the sum of their parts, and it's kind of the secret sauce of encounter design. So creating readable problems that are individually understandable and simple so that players can come up with cool solutions when all those simple problems get put together, that is the goal of encounter design. So a lot of time is spent on overlaps like that. Our amazing UX team, they're absolutely critical in terms.
Someone in chat asked, was Blades actually the hardest mechanic ever? Well, that's super subjective, right? Like, you could talk to someone that would make an argument of I mean, I could just straight up say, like, even doing this stuff, like 3-second seeds on Tindril, you could certainly argue were as hard as Web Blades. Like, they didn't even let us do them in the last phase. And if they did, it probably would have added like 1,000 pulls to the fight or something. Like, like not 1,000, but, so it's purely subjective, but pretty much everyone in our guild who has done a lot of really hard raid bosses is of the opinion that Web Blades is the hardest mechanic they've ever done. So I guess you'd have to just take their word for it, because almost no one is doing. How many people even experienced original Web Blades, right? Like, not that many guilds. So, and it's not really that in a vacuum is it alone. It's like everything that you're dealing with at the same time. Like, dude, doing Web Blades at the end of that fight when you have to take the last ring, like as you're picking up the essences, that's fucking insane. The problem with Web Blades was that it could target melee 4 times and not leave any safe spots. Well, you're saying that's a problem with it, but that's like part of the design. You have to learn how to outplay that. You can outplay that situation by preparing better and positioning better and moving better, right? Like that, we had to come up with a solution for when that happened. We couldn't just have someone die every time that happened, right?
In terms of testing those overlaps and finding the most fun, interesting, and like challenging variations of them. As an example, of a mechanic that actually didn't stand up to having fair timing. I actually have a question for you. Did you notice that a mythic mechanic was just straight up removed from Phase 2 a week before launch?
I wasn't sure of what he was referring to, because they kind of transitioned the tank mechanic in P2 like into the regular mechanic. So I didn't see them as that removing it. I just saw it as like being an enhancement of one that was already there. But Scott nailed this.
It was in the dungeon journal.
So yeah, you guys were, if you guys didn't know, they were also going to make the tanks swap platforms, which you could have done. He like, I'll let him answer it, but he's saying like the reason why they got rid of it, which is interesting. It's because like, oh, well, you're wanting to stack the ads up because you have to kill them, but then you have to move away from rest, and then how do you have a tank swap platforms? But really, you can do all of that. You just need rescues, or you need to play tanks that can do that, which is also, I kind of wanted to ask a question, because it would have really related to that, which is like, okay, well, you need certain classes to do that. It was like, okay, well, you need certain classes to like break roots in P1 too. You know, you need a certain amount of those things to do that, and that's just like, that's part of fights sometimes. Like it's a drawing the line there. He basically said the UX team said it wasn't fun, which makes sense. There's probably, I think, especially with the recent news of like Microsoft like firing QA people, that like people think that there is not a QA team in raid design that like fixes fucking everything. Which is something that they made a point to bring up like multiple times in this interview, which does kind of make sense, because like I think publicly people think that like there's no more QA at Blizzard.
For months, and then it just vanished, and I never saw anyone mention it. I'm curious if you guys.
This is a Siori question.
Tank one? Was it the tank one where like the tank swapped portals?
Is this interview out on YouTube?
Yeah, we were planning like our tank comp around it. We were like, well, Blood DK doesn't look that good, because if the ads are grippable, like you're gonna have the problem where the Blood DK just randomly swaps side. So you know, we were planning around that, and we did notice that had disappeared.
So QA is world first. I don't think you're gonna find those people or Blizzard arguing that their QA team is better than us. But that also isn't necessary to do their job.
Interesting. Yeah. So, you know, the reason why that mechanic was removed is because of that testing and making sure that, you know, a simple problem didn't overcomplicate in a way that we didn't intend it to. And with that mechanic, when you would kill a devoted worshiper, there was like a cosmic void rift that would open above them, and then an asteroid would crash down on the play space, and that was the thing the tank had to soak, and they had to take that through the portal to get rid of that debuff before it exploded and killed everyone. So
how good realistically do you think that team is? Their QA team? I have no idea who they are. I've never met any of them to my knowledge. I mean, I've met people who used to be on the QA team that used to play in top guilds. Like the people who did QA, like Skullflower, DPS on Roids, Ovid, a bunch of those dudes actually are now like have been promoted, but they worked in QA at Blizzard for a while, and they were coming from top guilds. So assuming that process has remained somewhat the same, I imagine they are pretty good. But also, even if they got there being pretty good, their job is to play WoW and raids all day. So if you're doing that, you're probably going to get better. So I imagine, I mean, I'm totally making this up, but like if they're probably like a relatively skilled mythic guild. I don't really know where that would fall. I would bet a lot of money that they're not as good as us, but also that would be insane if that were true. And right, like that would be, there's just no way that's true. But I mean, they're probably really good, you know? And they can tune the knobs however they need to simulate. Yeah.
To put an incentive for tanks to have to do a swap at some point, which turned out to even not be necessary. The problem with it, the reason why it just ultimately was cut, was because it didn't fit with the rhythm of the other abilities going on at that moment. Like Rest was asking players to get far away from the edge of the platform. The Devoted Worshipper, which you had to kill in order to beat a timer on a cast, did not allow you to play around the timing of that. So if you happened to kill the Worshipper when Rest was going out, what was the tank really supposed to do at that point? How could they soak the asteroid and be in position to not get yanked? And of course there are some solutions to that, For example, you know,
Dude,
Priest
that's such a
changed-
good point. You are right. Like the OG Razageth intermission, the like one that they had to nerf in literally in half, and then kind of the same thing for Storm Surge. If them making that means that their QA team did it, then they are way better than us. That's true. That they're like twice as good as both us and Echo, which is crazy. I think the reality of that is, and I think Ian has said this in an interview before, that a lot of times for the race, they test what is possible with the gear that you have, and then they just crank that number up and see if we can do it. And that's usually how stuff like that happens.
The tank back onto the platform, stun immunities, but it ultimately just wasn't fun. Testing that overlap, it never got to the point where we liked it, and we just felt.
Do they not have God mode tools to test? I'm sure they do. But that doesn't mean that they would exclusively test in God. Like, for example, if all you're planning on testing is this overlap, Frothy Toxin, Wave Dodging, Web Blades, Liquefy, everything, right? And they're like, all right, let's see if it's even possible to dodge this, but let's take all raid damage out for the time being. Okay, cool. So that's step one in the problem-solving process. All right, so let's all do this in, like, people refer to God mode, and I don't even know if this is how they work. I'm just saying that it would actually be a creative like workflow that makes sense. Okay, let's all try to do it where no one's taking any damage. Can we just actually position properly for this and like even do it? Is it even fun? Is it hard? Is it challenging? Oh, it is fun. Okay, cool. So let's add what realistic raid damage would be, and then let's practice it for a while and see if that's doable. There's like multiple steps to making something difficult where using God mode would make sense, but also like they would be really bad at their jobs if they just tested everything in God mode and never looked at what realistic damage intake or outgoing damage would look like, and I doubt they do that. So
Encounter was better off without it, and I know we're really glad that we ship without it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I would have enjoyed doing that one on my Guardian Druid.
You would have just gotten rescued over and over again, just like like the actual rest. That's good.
Yeah, so the kind of a small follow-up, but like, can you describe?
Dude, I didn't realize that I made my camera just slightly too big to fit in this shit.
The process from your guys' end about like watching the race to world first and trying to like, I guess because you can't just shut up and enjoy the race as just the race. Like you were constantly.
Does QA use weak auras? That's a good question. That's a really good question. I'm sure they try to test every single mechanic and make sure that you can do it without weak auras. Like that's an important design process. That has to be their goal. But then I bet it's really interesting for them to create and use weak auras for those things to see how weak auras impact them, to give better feedback to designers about how weak auras could impact a fight. 100%. I bet they do both of those things.
Looking at the bosses thinking like, have we, you know, maybe made this a little too hard, a little too easy? Like, how difficult is it?
Well, they definitely don't do that, judging by Firac intermission. Okay, so you're saying that they definitely don't like play fights without weak auras, and you're saying that because of the Firac intermission? You think it was impossible to do the Firac intermission without a weak aura? So we 2 or 3 shot it. And then we did it correctly. No weak aura. Fully natty. Race world first. Only people on the boss. No other information to go off of. We just spread people out. Had everyone soak the same color. And we did it in 3 tries. Right? So saying that it's impossible is insane. Now, I'm not saying that our guild is a good metric for overall guild skill level. But like I said, sometimes for bosses, they see if something's possible and then try to have people do it. The reason you did a weak aura is it just made it more consistent. That's why you really make any weak aura. Same thing with like a Brood Twister this tier, right? Doing the Brood Twister mechanic without a weak aura. Could you do the Brood Twister weak aura without a weak aura, or Brood Twister mechanic without a weak aura? Yes. Would it have been significantly harder? Yes. Would it have added a lot of pulls to the boss? Yes. In fact, if you had to do it in 6 seconds, I don't think that possible. Yes. Would it have taken a long time? I think if you were not using a weak aura, they would have to make it 8 seconds. I think that what they nerfed it to now. I think what it is now is 8 seconds, which is very possible to do without a weak aura for sure. I even made a raid plan one time to show you how we would plan for that if it wasn't able to be a weak aura, right? Like no macro, nothing. You can't even do it. You just have to like play the fight.
I showed you how you would spread people out and what kind of a system you would use on who would move based on who gets what debuffs. And it's workable. It just would have been harder. It would have made a hard fight harder. But it's possible, right? So saying they definitely don't because of a certain mechanic is totally missing the point.
During the race, to just sit back and like be like, this boss is killable. We know this is killable. They can do it. Because Queen and Serac, I think a lot of the people in the community were expecting to get nerfed.
Someone said QA generates test cases and checklists through them. It's very structured. I would highly doubt they even play the fight end to end. From what you're saying is it sounds like you have more knowledge of how QA in general works in companies, and I would trust what you're saying. But I think that the idea that a WoW QA tester in raids, they never see a fight play out end to end is insane to me. I would bet almost anything that they do that a lot. I bet they absolutely fucking do that.
Before it actually
That's
went
so
down
important.
in the end. And then you guys held off big time nerfing it, and, you know, turned out it was killable.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, as I mentioned before, our UX team is like really critical for building that kind of confidence about an overlap. You know, sometimes we even test exact overlaps over and over again.
Like
to
right here.
ensure that they're possible, to ensure that we sort of understand all the different pieces of that overlap, and the overlap with like web blades and liquefy and frothing, you know, frothy toxin and such
Web blades,
in phase
yeah.
1. Yeah, that's an example of one of those overlaps where, you know, we tested that a lot, and so there was confidence that those types of things were doable. Like a very specific example, during one of our tests, a UX analyst analyzed an overlap in phase 1 and gave a suggestion about how to tweak it by like a few seconds of difference to make it more engaging, more fair, more fun. And similarly, there was a ton of feedback that was given to fine-tune melee versus ranged experiences.
Dude, so true. His headset is fucking huge. I didn't even like register that until you typed it, but those things are fucking massive.
With some of the overlaps,
Oh my
actually
God.
another big change that happened during the course of development, the frothy toxin
Things are
debuff
huge.
originally was going to be like an explosion around the player when it expired. There was going to be a rim around every single player after you did the leap over the wave, and then you're going to have to all spread out while you're spreading out of the big
That's fucking insane what he's saying right now.
rim that's on the person that popped it. And that was cut mainly because it really was not an enjoyable experience for melee trying to get back onto the boss, but also all spreading out, but also web blades are happening. It's like,
I mean, also that would have made that the hardest part of P1. And I think it was a good decision to cut it because I think P1 and Serac during the race was like one of the hardest P1s ever. Bro, you were 400 pulls into that fight, and it was very normal to wipe in phase 1. You know how hard a phase has to be for that to happen? That's insane. That is insanely hard. Right? So, like, them adding something to P1 that would have been the focal point of P1 that's really hard, that would have been, with everything else already included, it would have been probably the hardest phase ever, and it would have made the boss probably almost twice as long because the only thing that matters in that fight is getting to P3, and it would have been way harder to do that. So, I mean, that just sounds insane what he's saying too.
that's just too much, and it breaks the rhythm of the fight. So that's the type of stuff that we look at a lot. I think to that end, in regards to the nerfing question, you know, and watching the race, because of the type of testing we do and the confidence that builds with specific mechanical overlaps, we always want to give the benefit of the doubt to players that something is doable on live. Of course, we aren't perfect, right? We're just humans too. Sometimes we miss, you know, for example, the raw outgoing damage in a specific moment in combination with an overlap or something like that has a lot of layers of difficulty competing with each other. Or
That's what he's saying right now. I feel like is the fundamental thing that this is. I'm not even really talking to you guys. There's maybe like how many people are in here? A few thousand. Like there's probably a few of you guys who feel this way. But like you guys know the reason why game devs can't really assign any of the work they've done to themselves because these people can't act right. I think what they don't understand is this what he just said.
we miss, you know, for example, always want to give the benefit of the doubt to players that something is doable on live. Of course, we aren't perfect, right? We're just humans too. Sometimes we miss, you know.
That. I don't think a lot of the super degens, the reason why devs can't have an identity in public as a game designer of a game that these people play, is because they don't see them as human. Like, they don't see them as people who are human, who work a job and can make mistakes, because to them the game is so much more important to them. It's their life. It's like the stakes are so much higher, you know. And I don't think that. And again, I'm probably not even speaking to a lot of you. You're like, fucking no shit. But I think those people actually don't get that. It's the only thing that lines up with the way they act.
For example, the raw outgoing damage in a specific moment in combination with an overlap or something like that has a lot of layers of difficulty competing with each other, or the DPS downtime it might cause might be longer than expected. So sometimes considerations are made for an adjustment in those cases, but it's always about, at the end of the day, what we think is going to be the best experience for players if we do make an adjustment, you know, first and foremost.
Cool. I actually wanted to like kind of add that. So you mentioned a lot of like the mechanical difficulty. Like, can you pop? I didn't even write this down. This was a just off the cuff follow up because I wanted to know more specifically about number tuning, because I think it has to be fascinating as a raid designer, and you and a few other people are like responsible for a boss, and you're watching the race and you're like, I don't know. The entire community is like, this boss isn't killable, and we in the guild are like, this boss, we're not saying this boss is unkillable, but we also weren't saying it was killable. Like, them being in that position and trying to guess what we can do on a fight with that much optimization, I just wanted to hear his take on it. I want to listen to it again. Possibly spread out for this in time. Can you live this amount of damage? That's like one side of throughput, like the throughput that's coming into your character. How closely do you watch or have to watch play out a boss like Ansarek, where you are, you know, watching how much damage we can do? Because I can tell you, we never said this boss is unkillable. There were some other guilds that were saying the boss is unkillable, but there wasn't a lot of us in the guild confidently being like, we definitely have the damage to kill this. Like, I was not confident that we could kill this boss until we really started optimizing on a purely single target fight with that much potential optimization in P3. I guess, how much from your perspective was it just sitting there looking like, do they have enough? Like, were you confident from a pretty early point? Like, no, they actually can find the damage if they just do this, because we who do this for a living, right? Like, we didn't know, because you never really know how much damage you can get out of a situation like that. I guess just kind of describe that process and talk about the other side of tuning, of like sitting there in the race and maybe watching us optimize and trying to follow along with that.
Yeah, I think Ansarek is definitely an interesting example of this. We knew that Phase 3 had a tremendous amount of opportunity for optimization. Like a really, really large amount. The amount of target switching that goes on in that phase, you know, kind of gave us the confidence based on our, you know, internal analytics and what we understand about what players are physically capable of, that it was doable.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we have discussions, right, about that as we're watching or whatnot, but ultimately, I think
I would love to be there for that. Bro, if I could be there during a lunch break as just a fly on the wall, and they have TVs where they have like the race up in their offices, and I would just love to hear them. Dude, I mean, wouldn't that just be great content? Like, this can't happen, but wouldn't it be fucking sick if you have like the Echo broadcast, the Liquid broadcast, my stream, and then you have a Blizzard fight designer co-stream? And they can watch any poll of any guild, and you're listening to the people who made the fights watch the people pull it. That would be fucking nuts, right? So what I'm saying is, I would love to be a fly on the wall in that like lunchroom as they're watching it and just hearing what they think about it. I think that would be fascinating.
We felt like, as we were seeing the progress being made there in you know, chunks at times, right, that it was sort of proving what we
like
thought.
Yeah, like there's good parts of it, and then there's parts where like we go in and one tank Kaiveza and they're like, God fucking damn it.
Which was that the optimization was there, and this is actually another reason why we were excited to have even Phase 1 be on a timer and not a health threshold, because it meant that every little bit of damage was going to matter in that final moment. And so seeing that extra 0.5% come off in Phase 1, you know, was another example of us having the confidence that there is more damage here to be taken off, and it matches what we expect, from our internal analytics. So, it was a very exciting moment.
Kaiveza wasn't dying week one without the one. Yes, it was.
For sure to watch.
You just saying stuff?
But we definitely discussed it and had confidence that the optimization was there.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'll just jump in too and say part of the privilege of like making these encounters, right, especially at the cutting edge, is we get to see the best and the best make them. And there are definitely times where we've done a lot of work to try to ensure that the encounters are beatable and that they're within range, but that's a pretty small, that's a knife's edge, right, for tuning in a lot of situations. It's really a pleasure seeing you guys find the solutions. A mantra on the team is, they'll find it, even if it looks like they won't. You guys always tend to come up with interesting solutions, strategies that we never once believed were possible. So it's fun to see you guys find the damage or find the strategies, even when we think it may be barely in reach.
Okay. That's really cool. From a design perspective, trying to make something that's barely in reach. Yeah, I just think that's so... we had a follow-up question to this. I don't know if it's now or it's basically like how... Okay, so you're designing that process, but you also have to design the game for everyone else, and like that. I think it might be actually right after this. I might not even have to. I think it is. I think this has to be something you guys think about all the time, especially probably Taylor from your end. But you guys have a pretty impossible task. The delta of like guild skill level that encounter mythic is pretty massive, right? Like from the people that do this literally for a job and people who do this a few days of the week after work as a side hobby thing that are doing the same content. I guess, what is it like finding the line for tuning where you are making something that can challenge people who are doing this with their sole goal in life is to do this as good as possible, and then also knowing when that challenge needs to be either nerfed or, like, I guess now you guys have the scaling buff, which I think has been working pretty well, like where that can naturally nerf a lot of that difficulty as well. But I guess, can you describe maybe the struggle or the just finding the balance of tuning between the best in the world and the average mythic player?
Yeah, the process is difficult, right? You described pretty well that we have at least 2 player groups, right? Within Mythic, we have
there's probably a lot
Race
more.
to World folks, and you can even extend to that sometimes.
Race to World folks, dude. That's okay. This is not a big deal at all, but every time I talk to someone about WoW, they always call it that. So like if I'm like at Team Liquid, like let's say I'm at like, I did this recently, like Team Liquid had like an all hands in LA where they brought in all their important executives from around the world to come in and, I don't know, just like figure shit out for a couple days. And then they had like a little like get together one night and they were like, you should come around and shake hands with people and be there. And I was like, all right, fuck it. So I showed up for like an hour before I had to go to hockey. And that's like what an executive will say to you. Oh, that's good. We saw you in the last Race to Worlds. Yes, that was good job in Race to Worlds. Like, Race to Worlds? What the fuck is Race to Worlds? It's just always like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me when Complexity, when I was there, hired a new like head of partners or something like that, and she was in a meeting with us and she called us e-gamers. She was formerly with like NASCAR or something like that, so I don't think she was super familiar with the space, but she called us fucking e-gamers. So I always think about that. So when people say, how was Race to Worlds? I'm just like, they're trying to, they kind of know what I do, but like you can kind of tell that it's just like some other shit to them, which is cool. I don't know. Is it weird that bothers me? It shouldn't bother me. Like, I don't know. Like they kind of get the point. But for some, it seems, I just don't know. I don't like it. It's like someone calling your shit the wrong thing. It's like, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but it's like you're like a football player and someone's like, yeah, have you had fun playing? And they just come up with some other fucking word for the game you play, or like it would just be weird. It's probably how Europeans feel when we call football soccer. It's the exact same feeling, I think. Because I know y'all get mad about that every single time. You know that in America it's normal to call it that, but even then you still have to, like, not even think and get annoyed by it, but you have to type in chat that you're like, don't you mean this? So of course it's annoying. It's the same. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
Guilds or Hall of Fame. And then we have other mythic guilds who aren't in the race to world first. You know, they're not playing as a full-time job. And meeting the demand and for both of those audiences is tough. Landing the experience in a way
Did the
that
devs
suits
big
both
time you?
of those
No, they know what's up.
audiences is difficult. We try to make sure that when you log in, you always have something you can achieve. And in the past, we've used systems like the strands to help with that, alleviate the difficulty over time. We find it's best if the power progression comes from your character, right, in a positive way, as opposed to nerfs. We have used nerfs as well to land things, you know, after the Race to World First has ended or after Hall of Fame has ended, to try to make challenges more approachable and reasonable for the audience that's getting to that encounter at the time. But yeah, it's really difficult. We talked earlier about some places where we're looking to smooth the difficulty over time, you know, in comparison to 10.2 and 11.0. But yeah, it's something that's very top of mind for us. In general, for feedback, I use like a triangle of feedback is what I call it sometimes. We look a lot at our internal data. So just a quantitative understanding of how many guilds are at each boss encounter, success rates, how those are moving over time.
I would love what those internal things look like. I mean, like how similar does something like that look to like progstats.io? Except progstats is all like publicly available information, and they have all of that information. Like everything logged in WoW, they have the ability to see.
How many people are, you know, graduating out of a specific difficulty into another. We also look at our own intuition, our own experiences, right, as we go home and raid at night, trying to understand.
Do you know what I remember a lot, or I think about a lot too? Like in PTR, we don't stream our PTR, but Blizzard watches it all the time. I wonder if they do that when we turn our streams off on Mythic, and then they're like watching it in the lunchroom or whatever. And then they're like, all right, their streams are going off, and they're like, oh, god damn it, we have to pull up that program and watch them raid on this other thing now, and we can't put it on the fucking TV. Well, they probably can, but...
How the raid feels, comparing notes in the morning, you know, talking about the raid with each other as designers. And then the last and most important is obviously player feedback. We're always listening to forums, you know, internal and otherwise, from our coworkers who are playing the raid as well.
Oh, someone mentioned Pirate Software. Yo, remind me of him after the interview. He had an interesting tweet today that very much lines up with our coverage of the Adpocalypse.
Trying to make sure that we're landing the difficulty in a good place, not only when the raid launches, but as the tier goes on, week by week.
Cool. Thank you.
This next question's for Steven, but if you could just describe the process or maybe even the struggle of trying to design boss mechanics that you want to not just be dominated by weak auras. You don't want it to be like, oh, if your guild doesn't have a weak aura, this mechanic's not doable. Like, how do you come up with a mechanic that doesn't just get solved by a weak?
I think we got kind of a PR answer for this. This is just my opinion. Maybe I'll let you hear the answer, but I think as a developer, weak auras have to fucking infuriate you. Because you can just make this sick fucking cool mechanic and then something out of your control, people in the community won't interact with the thing the way you want because a weak aura exists. You have to actually, it has to be really frustrating. But I don't think they were in a position. They weren't going to come out and be like, yo, weak auras fucking suck, but there's some weak auras suck takes that make sense. We're not going to do a whole add-on discussion right now, but I'm a fan of in-fight, like, solving raid mechanic weak auras. I think those suck. But you can't get rid of weak auras because weak auras are amazing for UI, and you also really good for accessibility for people who need that and every other good thing that they do and every other good thing that every other add-on does. But, I mean, it just has to objectively suck for a fight designer. It has to.
Weak aura.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think we are obviously cognizant of weak auras existing. I think ultimately our main goal is to design a mechanic that is, on some level, just intuitive and fun as the core basis of what we're starting with. And, you know, in terms of feeling like we're limited or whatever by weak auras, it's more about the mechanic itself feeling like with or without a weak aura, players can understand and and ultimately solve it in a way that's interesting for them. You know, in terms of the amount of affordance and time
I have to move
we
that
give
back.
players,
Good
we
reminder.
think about that a lot, and we're continuing to think about that as we
Symmetry.
develop future content to ensure that, you know, no matter what add-on suite you have, that the content is approachable for the particular difficulty or player band that it's, you know, targeted at. Taylor, do you have anything specific there you want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't think it fundamentally limits, you know, making compelling encounters. We made a lot of really cool encounters in the past that I don't think have relied strongly on weak auras.
That is true. I mean, most fights, even in raid tiers that don't feel good with weak auras, I mean, 98% of things are totally fine, and it's like one thing that sticks out, and it's the only thing you remember, and it matters a lot to you. But it is true. I mean, like, you can look at like every raid. It's not like that is Max's face in this frame. Oh, dude, I look like I'm fucking tired. I mean, it's weird. Like, interviews, you can't really, while you're doing the interview, you can't even intake the answer because you're thinking about the next question. It's just, I just wish they gave me 20 minutes longer of an interview. And I'll ask the same amount of questions, but we can just talk about it more.
But something we try to keep in mind anytime we're making a mechanic, anytime we're designing an encounter, is how it's going to manifest in gameplay, right? We want mechanics to manifest in a way where everyone feels involved. You know, this can be limited both by how much add-on usage is going to be involved in solving that problem. Another way this manifests as a problem is if an entire mechanic is solved by one person, right? We don't necessarily, especially as difficulty increases, a mechanic to be like quarterbacked by one person and everyone else feel like they're out in the cold, right, in terms of the gameplay. So, yeah, we try to really keep in mind how a mechanic is going to be solved. Sometimes it's difficult to know, right, because we're designing like interesting problems. We're not necessarily designing solutions to those problems. We let you guys figure that out. But we try to understand when we are designing a problem, just how that's going to manifest in terms of the gameplay and how people will approach it.
What is it? They think people who don't have to do mechanics feel bad? You're probably looking at that the wrong way. Think of it the other extreme. So think about every single raid fight ever. No one does any mechanics, and you just attack a boss that isn't even meleeing the tank. That's a mechanic. Literally, you just... Here's what raids are. You zone in. You hit a boss. One single boss. No more bosses. And that boss doesn't do anything. And... like, literally nothing. And then you kill it. Right? That would be dog shit content. It'd be terrible, right? And then the alternative of that, like current Mythic Plus, where in Mythic Plus you guys are getting more mechanics now and you fucking hate it. That's the alternative. So, like, infinite mechanics is also bad. So the reality is it's somewhere in between. If every job you had on a raid was just, like, doing nothing, you say that now, you're like, oh, that would be good. Because that's in response to what you have to do. And a lot of people in chat I know that I can pick out their names just don't like raiding in general, so they're just saying dumb shit. But there is, like Rashok would be a more enjoyable fight for everyone, with everyone having to dodge orbs rather than only, like, 10 people having to do it. And really, more specifically, what they're referring to is we just don't want mechanics that can be solved by 6 to 8 people to be soloed. And that's usually involving, like, immunities cheesing things and tank soloing stuff, which I think is also good for design, too. Sledge Fist and Rashok are some of people's favorite fights, and there's no mechanics to do. You don't know what the word mechanic means.
Cool. Kind of on that note, I think initially a couple...
That literally makes no sense what you just said. Rashok has everyone in the fight dodging or waves the entire time, which is the fundamental primary fight mechanic. You get a searing slam on you that you have to take out, which every single person in the raid has to get. And then you also all soak a battery, which you have to go in at separate times to get rid of your debuff in the middle, which does raid damage and kills everyone if they go in all at once. Literally the entire fight is everyone doing a mechanic, and is the best example of him. It's Rashok and Sludgefist are both perfect examples of everyone doing all of the mechanics the entire fight, and that being a good thing. You made your own point, or you made the opposite point.
Years ago, private auras were kind of introduced as a potential solution to some weak aura heavy things. I think bad examples of, like, how there was a negative interaction in the past would have been, you know, you have to press a max.
We can skip this. They basically just said private auras. That's it.
Stuff. It's related. circuit artists who are making the
I don't even know
textures
why
on
we
the
asked this
floors
question.
pretty-
Private ores are at this point where they tried to go super hard with them, and they got it back to the point where they're pretty much unnoticeable, which can have slight benefits, but I don't know. It's just not. Yeah.
Encounter spaces, and just made sure that there was more contrast there. I think we can continue to get better, but it caught several instances of this that I think ended up having a much better experience for players. And in 11.1, we actually have a, like the swirl that indicates like a missile is incoming or a damage event is incoming.
Yeah.
It's used a lot of places in the game. We have a different version of this coming in 11.1 that we'd love to hear
Oh, here's the good shit.
feedback on the PTR. It'll be used in Season 2 dungeons and in the new raid. So
That's huge.
We're hoping players will check it out, give us feedback.
New
and
swirlies.
really, we're trying to make gameplay easier. We know it
W.
can be very chaotic. I play a lot of melee classes myself, so I'm always getting hit by something that I didn't see. So we're hoping this will alleviate the issue there.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, like as an example with Ansarek, we knew that she was going to use a Void and Web and Poison, and very early on, we worked with our excellent dungeon art team to ensure that, like Taylor was saying, depending on where she was going to use which ability kits, the arena would have subtly different coloring and shading to allow for those.
Oh, this was cool. So basically, there's a lot of purple shit on the ground in the last phase of Ansarek, and a lot of like web blade texture, and they actually actively changed the like color of the ground to make things
kits
more
to pop
visible.
better. So
Which we just also looked at earlier with the Nathrius and how the massacre changed the
we
floor.
knew that in phase 1 she was going to be using mostly Web and Poison, and we wanted to make sure that the floor was conducive to that. And in phase 3 we knew that she was going to use Void, and while there is still purple in phase 3, that floor is actually much more like muted than it was originally at one point in development, to really try to make sure that the contrast was reasonable. Yeah, so
Nice.
The next question we had was kind of where class meets raid. So DK in general doesn't have like a raid buff, so it doesn't have a mandatory raid slot. How much from like a raid POV do you guys like think about, oh well, we want DK to be in the raid, we want every class to see play in the raid, like how many grippable ads does a boss have? Like, because that's basically DK's way into the raid. If something's grippable, there's only one class that can do it.
Low-key bad question. How so? I think the only reason this could be a bad question is because the answer is obvious. We're basically saying, how much as a raid designer do you have to think about how classes are being brought to raids? But DKs aren't given a raid buff. So the class team has not come up with a solution with raids, with DKs getting into raids. They are literally relying on fight designers to create fights that make their niche utility useful enough in a raid to where they're considered to have a raid buff. So the job is entirely on these people. So the only reason it could be a bad question is if you think we already know the answer. But I still think it's interesting to hear the insights behind that. How many bosses? He even mentions at the end, especially for an end boss, I think is what he says here.
How much does that have like effect on like the raid design in general, and does it have even more effect on the last boss specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in general we try to make sure there's
Is Scott a massive Tolkien fan? Yeah, he loves Lord of the Rings.
Of utility problems throughout the raid. I don't know if we're always looking at unique solutions like DKs. DKs have some cool spells that really nobody else can do. But hopefully every class has a variety of buttons that we can enable. Really part of the core responsibility of an encounter designer is not to make some monster that just stomps your face in and does it in a cool way, although hopefully we do that a few times, but also that we're enabling class buttons.
Dude, this is so random, but why has this guy just been in my channel for the last little bit and he just keeps saying Tar Island? Like just why? That's not. Fuck it. Fucking Tar Island. Let's go.
Right. We want players of the heroes. We want you to be able to solve interesting problems in interesting ways. So we try to provide.
You gotta respect the bit.
Of different types of dispels, a number of different types of situations where a steam heating roar or other speed boosts are effective, and just provide like a large landscape across the raid of utility situations where you can really be rewarded for taking the right talent, or that you can really feel special for picking the spec that you did. You might be the only monk in the raid, and your Ring of Peace feels amazing, you know, on the penultimate fight of the raid. So we're just always looking.
That is, I mean, that does. Oh, that's interesting. They think about Ring of Peace. I mean, there's so many different ways to knock things back, but Ring is usually. Ring is such a good button. I think Ring has to be like a
For opportunities to do that, and
top tier
sometimes we'll
button
even
in the
do
game.
passes, you know, late in the development cycle to just make sure we have enough instances throughout the raid for players to feel really powerful.
Yeah, no, that's great. Just another question we had as well was, has there been any fight you've designed where, like, you guys thought of a solution for a certain mechanic overlap or a certain just how the boss is killed that the community solves in a completely different way? Like, you didn't even consider it.
Damn, he gave the answer of like Ansurek heroic of like people doing the Venn diagram thing and how Mythic. One of the reasons Mythic had that mechanic was that something like that wouldn't happen. I was kind of hoping for something spicier, like some really famous boss, and like people just had no idea. I'm trying to think of what is like some really interesting solutions that we had come up with. Oh, like maybe Jailer, like on Jailer in the last phase, you had to like perfectly stack those ads for them to even be remotely killable. I wonder if they thought about that or if they spread them out. What about like them doing Anduin blasphemies and seeing like Echo come up with like this crazy fucking system for it rather than just doing it natty? I don't know why, but like the Ansrek heroic thing didn't do it for me here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Taylor kind of mentioned this a little bit.
Oh yeah, the
earlier.
bop on Scale Commander.
Really
Yo, dude, I would have loved to hear about Scale Commander. Well, you're talking about Sarkareth, but like on Sarkareth, you bopped a tank to keep them out while everyone else went down. I don't know what they planned on Ansarek, but I swear having the entire group go down at once was not what they envisioned. It can't be.
Our job as designing, you know, problems and making sure that players are the ones that are coming up with the solutions. An example specifically on Ansarek for this was the bombs and different spacing and timing than how exactly you wound up solving it yourselves, and so it was cool to see that happen.
Wait, actually, I
did that, but with some different spacing and timing than how exactly you wound
He's
up
talking about
solving it
the
yourselves. And so
Ansarek waves.
It was cool to see that happen.
That's great.
Yeah,
I was
that makes sense.
I was told we have one more question left, so I'm having to pick a good one here.
This was cool.
I don't know. This is like kind of a personal one for me that I think is interesting, and maybe will give some good insight for everyone. So when you guys start making a boss, whether it's your job or you're working as a group, but you've been given like a concept for a boss, do you start by making that fight on Mythic and going down, or do you start with the very, very base version of that boss on LFR normal and then add or anything in between? Like, what is that process like?
Yeah, we actually target heroic first. That's generally the target. It kind
that
of
was like the one
look.
thing that I didn't expect that, but upon hearing it, totally makes sense. Because like heroic is like, you're not doing anything super insane, which is the Mythic idea, and you're not doing something super like, imagine making a base fight on just normal, like, or on just LFR. Like, it could just be anything, you know. You're not getting anywhere. Like, designing it on heroic at least gives the fight shape to know what like it's supposed to be. That like makes sense to me a lot.
Look at the core gameplay hook of the fight, and then we go from there. That doesn't mean that sometimes
it's the goal for most players too. Yeah, true.
And we call it accidentally mythicking, and then we have to pare it down a little bit. But yeah, ultimately our UX team is really good at understanding the play experience, not just at their natural level of play, but also at like all levels of play, and that also helps us understand where we're landing with our first passes and how to push that up or down as needed.
Cool. Yeah, I actually wouldn't have expected that. I was expecting it to be
Morgan Day said LFR is the most popular difficulty.
normal or mythic, but
That's not
heroic,
surprising
but it
at all.
actually makes a ton of sense. So, all right. Well, I think we've been told that's all the time we have, unfortunately. So, it was
Cool. That's it. Yeah, W. Cool. Love it. That was fun. Woohoo. I mean, you just queue it on an alt while you're at work. I mean, it's just the most accessible mode. You need the least amount of things to get into it. And also, one thing that is known is there's this massive population of WoW players that have been playing forever that don't even plan on rating normal or heroic or do Mythic Plus. And the mode that is the most obviously designed for them is LFR. So obviously that is going to have the most player base. I feel like that just makes infinite sense. Reminding you about Pirate Software. Oh, yeah. So you guys told me about some like Twitch adpocalypse thing. And then we did like a nice little 10 to 15 minute like Twitter investigation on what the fuck you guys were talking about. And it just seemed like some culture war nonsense and there wasn't really enough information. Like all of the like reporting being done on it was like super bad faith. Like no one even knows they're talking about it and people are just saying shit. And I was like, I don't know. This seems sketchy. I'll wait for more information to come out. And then Pirate Software had a tweet today that kind of explained it. Pirate Software is absolutely goated. Yeah, I don't know that guy. But he made a good tweet today. So we like that a lot. There is no Twitch adpocalypse. The reason people are seeing no ad revenue for the last 2 days is because none of us ever have. Twitch calculates ad revenue for a stream 3 to 4 days later. That is true. I said that the other day. The reason some streamers are seeing reduced ad fill rates is because their content and tags. If you had a tag with sexual, political themes of any time. Wait, do I have any of those? Guys, what are the tags? What are our tags looking like here? English and drops enabled. We like that. That's solid. Okay. An adpocalypse would denote this is happening to everyone on the platform. It's not. Our income is exactly the same for this time of the year as it's ever been. That was true for me as well. There are a lot of people blowing up this to be something massive when legit nothing is going on. All cases provided it's either normal behavior or misused or mistargeted tags. There's also a lot of people suddenly discovering how ad revenue works on the platform. This is all stuff I've worked with and understood for years. Some ferret shit. I know because of ferrets. No amount of bitching will make this untrue. W. Woo. Just don't mention politics and you're good. Yeah. Wait, what? He's glazing that game so hard, claiming best ever, etc. I've seen tons of clips. It's a little weird because there's some possible shadiness happening within that game. Ashes of Creation. I mean, if someone thinks Ashes of Creation is a great game, you can shill the fuck out of it. Why not? I mean, they're trying to do something really ambitious, and if you're an old school MMO person, you'll probably think it's sick. I think Ashes of Creation is a scam, and I don't think there's any chance that game is going to be good. And I also would love to be wrong because I want every game to be good because it makes every other game better. So, yeah, I think that game sucks. But it's not surprising to me that someone would see what they're offering and actually believe the guy who's making it, who I think is a total snake oil salesman from listening to him, and be super about it. But I'm not me. I hope it's sick though. Max, what was the last 10 out of 10 game you played? Like besides WoW. WoW's my favorite game I've ever played. But probably most recently Balatro. Balatro is like a absolutely insane game. Terra's Land? Tar Island? I had more... Terra's Land's one of the most fun games I've played in years. Unfortunately, it died on NA. We would have played the new season, too. The game is actually bad, but
for people who love doing really hard raid fights, it did that better than like literally every game except for WoW itself. It's very WoW-like as well, but yeah, crazy good. But unfortunately, it died. Did you vote on the awards yet? I don't care about gaming awards. I don't know, Elden Ring a few years ago. What other games have I played that are like 10 out of 10? I don't know, man. You said Zelda last year? I had a really fun time with Breath of the Wild and whatever the Tears of the Kingdom, I think. Actually, yeah, I'd probably say Tears of the Kingdom maybe was a 10 out of 10 just cuz like the like engineering part of it was so fun for me. I could see how some people wouldn't like Tears of the Kingdom as much, but like I actually had infinite fun making new contraptions and shit like that. I thought that element of that game was so cool. He's got them 10 out of 10 hentai games he plays in private. Yo, what the fuck? Yo, I do like a mobile gacha game every now and then. The only thing I don't like about it is they're all art styled after like waifus and shit, and that doesn't do it for me at all. That part makes me not want to play those games, but I like the hero collecting aspect of it. It's not into like anime stuff. Not my thing. Have you tried the new Pokemon Gacha TCG game? Yeah, Pokemon Pocket's pretty fun. Yeah, I've been playing it. Max is a blue archive enjoyer. What does that mean? Well, someone in chat just mentioned hentai not too long ago. So maybe I shouldn't type that into the old Google search. It's a primo gooner game. Yeah, I don't... The idea of gooning to any game sounds kind of insane to me. I'm not in... There's a huge market for it. I think that's part of the VTube community. I think that's certainly why, like, all those gacha games, like, model all of the girls to look like that. Like, clearly there are dudes or girls, I guess, who are, like, super into that. It's never completely missed me more. I can't imagine... Like, I used to have, like, a bunch of people on my Twitter when Final Fantasy Rebirth was coming out, like, posting pictures of that Tifa character. And I'm like, dude, I could never imagine feeling that way about, like, a cartoon. That's fucking wild. That's insane. Nothing against it, really. I just don't really understand it, but that's fine. Nothing wrong with not understanding stuff. Has Sang spent all of his money on the new Pokemon game? I've seen people drop $1,500 to get all the cards. Yeah, but even then, like, that's... Who cares, you know? Just, like, play the game. All good. Fire Emblem Heroes is way less wifey than pretty much all gacha games. Yeah, I mean, there was one game I played, gacha game from many years ago, that was by far the best mobile game I've ever played, and it had really hard content that required a lot of strategizing and was like a hero collector. It's called Brave Frontier. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that name. I've played basically every gacha game or tried most popular ones, but Brave Frontier is 10 times better than all of them. It's actually so much better than all of them. I mean, probably because like now everything is so mobile games, it's so like scientifically engineered to extract money from you. That's like kind of the whole point of them. And maybe Brave Frontier did do that, but like maybe it wasn't as much of the point and they focused more on the actual content of the game. But I've never found any game that's come relatively close. It's sad. I wish someone would make a game like that again. That'd be amazing. The hard bosses where you had to memorize their patterns. Oh my god, yeah, it was so fun. Grand Summoners is close. What is Grand Summoners? Oh, it does look like very similar art style to Brave Frontier, actually. Max, why no play only things? Why y'all keep asking me that? I don't find classic entertaining in any way. Like, here's the best way to describe it for you, man. That classic nostalgia that you have, that like you're just like, you think of classic and you're just like, dude, I don't have that. It doesn't, I didn't play back then. It doesn't mean anything to me. I vastly prefer retail gameplay to anything classic whatsoever. So doing classic content, I just don't care. Also, something maybe to understand about me is I'm not gaming a lot right now. Like, I stream and I love my content on my stream where I mostly just talk, but when I don't stream, I am not at my computer. I am out of my house or I'm doing something else. I am like, so like there's just no time for me to do that, you know? So yeah, I'm not into it. Dude, what is this? When did this Grand Summoners game come out? This actually has the same vibe as Brave Frontier. What are the battles like? What is it about? Is it like Wait, it actually looks exactly like Brave Frontier. You said it's not as good though, right? God, you're letting me down. I needed one of you to tell me of a game that was just like Brave Frontier and just as good. I would fucking play the shit out of that. Always preferred Summoner's War myself. Bro, Summoner's War, I've played Summoner's War. I've played Raid Shadow Legends. I've played AFK Arena. I've played so many of these games. I know how they all work. Brave Frontier actually windmill dunks on all of them. It's not close. It's not even close, man. Have you played the Bazaar? First free-to-play... Wait, what is this? The first hero builder designed by Tempo. Oh, that sounds kind of fun. What is this? It's Reynad's game? Oh, that's where I heard about that. I've met Reynad a few times. Seems like a cool dude. I could learn more about, bro. Dude, I'm asking you guys to find me a game like this, but also part of me wants you to not do that, because if you guys actually did link me a good game that was what I was looking for, I would drop an extremely large amount of money on the game, and I also don't want to do that, but I would. What is the Bazaar? Here, let's see. Is it Reynad kind of kooky now? Lol. I have no idea. YouTube the Bazaar. What is this game like? Yeah, I don't know. Gameplay. I just want gameplay. I don't care about this shit. Oh, it's an auto battler roguelike.
Beauty can be a weapon.
That's, I mean, that definitely has potential. Max, pull up Crib stream.
Ridiculous indeed, yes.
That's his econ. He's fighting. Is it like PvE? I mean, it's a roguelike, so almost certainly.
Maybe a skirmish.
I need to get XP to level.
Yeah, it could be fun. Yeah. I'm interested in this Grand Summoners game. When did Grand Summoners come out? Is it super old? Oh, dude, it has hella bad ratings. Honkai Star Rail has a great rating and it's not that good. Yeah, dude, I found that game dreadful. I tried Honkai Star Rail for a bit because I was like, I need a new gacha game that's great. And that shit, I don't know. I feel like, well, I think that's also part of it. Like, I don't care about the art style or all the waifu shit. That part isn't appealing to me. And then, I don't care about the story. I only care about the gameplay, and the gameplay is just fucking turbo mid. So, I think people like. It seems like people are really invested in things like Honkai Star Rail and what's the name of the other one? Same company. Genshin, yeah. I don't know. That this shit. It's whatever. Grand Summoners came out 2016. Oh, that's so long ago. Yeah, and that low of ratings. That's GG. Although, like, the ratings can be weird with these games. Wuthering Waves is decent. Nah, wasn't a fan. The best game I've liked from that recently was AFK Journey. Actually, like AFK Arena came out with like a new game. I actually like that one a lot. PoE 2 comes out soon. Just vibe till then. Yeah, I think I got a package from them today. I've been playing Journey since release. Nice game to dump 20 minutes a day into. Yeah, 100%. I need more games to dump 20 minutes a day into. That's what I need right now. Anyone got any good mobile games they dump a few minutes into that they like? I need some shit like that. I'd love a good game like that. Especially on phone, because I'm just not at my house a lot. Warcraft Rumble. Ooh, actually I could get back into Warcraft Rumble. I actually really, really liked that game. It was a good game. Played that a lot. Yeah, I've played Pokemon TCG Pocket a little bit. MLB Perfect Inning. Nice MLB gameplay as both batter or pitcher. Oh, interesting. What does that look like? MLB Perfect Inning 24. I don't know if I care enough about baseball. D4 time? Wait, when is the new D4 league? Or season? I would kill to see Max playing Dress to Impress. What the fuck is Dress to Impress? Try Battle Legion. The fuck is Battle Legion? Epic PvP strategy game. Win massive 100v100 unit battles.
Look up Dress to Impress. All right, fuck it. Dress to Impress. Welcome to Dress to Impress is about showing your fashion creatively. Compete in themed contests to earn stars. This does look like it'd be pretty fucking hilarious content. Because I would just be so bad at this. That'd be pretty fun. Dude, maybe we should do that. Your kids play it. Woo. Max become a Roblox streamer. I can't be doing that. I don't think to be a good Roblox streamer, you have to appeal to a young audience. And I don't think I would appeal to a young audience. Like, if you look at people that appeal to a young audience, it's all very loud and yelling and stuff that'll keep a kid's attention span. And that's like the complete opposite of me. But it would be good. You make a lot of money. Actually, you get a lot more viewers, but you don't make that much more money. Ads that are targeted at kids make significantly less than ones targeted at adults with money. Yeah, exactly. You'd lose all your regular audience. Dude, I remember, you guys when Ninja was huge? I remember watching like a stream of Ninja at an event, and like I think it hurt his ego a little bit, but like watching that entire line of kids, like there was a meet and greet line and it was all kids. There was not one adult. They were all children. And it's like, bro, I would hate my life if that was me. Like, I would want the people who watch my content to be my peers, to be people I could relate to. Like, having my content be watched by children who I would have could not relate to at all would just, that would take it out of me. He also made like $20 million. Oh, he made way more than that. Yeah. Yeah, dude, I just need like a good mobile game. I need a good mobile game, nice 20 minutes a day, something like that. That would be great. But I don't know. I found one. You know what I actually liked? Have you guys ever played the Fallout game on phone? Fallout Shelter? Alright, that game, pretty good, by the way. But I would love a game like that that's just better. Like a game like Fallout Shelter, but just like more invested. But I actually did some digging last night, and that I don't think that exists. And I found a few Reddit threads of people asking if it exists, and no one had an answer. I don't think anyone's made a game like Fallout Shelter. Play Monster Hunter now. What is Monster Hunter now? What is this? Engage in thrilling hunts. Does it matter that I've never found regular Monster Hunter to be very fun? If you like idle games, I like Egg Inc. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Egg Inc., but I've heard that idle games are fine. So I don't know if you've actually seen this, but like Egg Inc. has legit 1 million copies of it, of like every different kind. Like my Superstore
Idle game, Roller Coaster Idle Tycoon, Idle Miner. They're all just copies of Egg Inc. But I haven't actually played Egg Inc., but I've played some of those other ones. Maybe I should just try the OG Egg Inc. Elder Scrolls Castles is Elder Scrolls Fallout Shelter, and it's better. I actually lost interest in Elder Scrolls Castle significantly faster than Fallout Shelter. Thought it was a lot worse. Dude, having to, like, have your, like, people, like, breed and shit was weird and was really annoying. Like, in Fallout Shelter, you just put them all in the housing units and that just happened naturally. But in that game, you have to individually put them in beds and shit to do. That's so annoying. That instantly made me turn that shit off. Need Factorio on mobile. Never played Factorio. I've heard people really like it, though. Dude, I've seen some mobile games that tried to, like, they're like trying to simulate like cookie clicker kind of. You guys remember that thing, cookie clicker? Is like an auto clicker thing. I think it was like an idle game before idle games existed, but it actually involves clicking constantly on your mobile phone, which sounds fucking horrible. Like, doing that on your phone sounds just so... Oh my god. Cookie clicker. Yeah, but clicking your mouse is better than, like, constantly tapping your phone, though. You know? Are you a fan of match 3 games? There's one I play that's based on DC, and it's nice to kill like 20 minutes a day on doing dailies and playing through their story mode. Based on DC, what, DC Comics? Yeah, so I'm cool with match 3 games, but every single one that I've tried playing on my phone, I don't even know if this is like a legit criticism, but like it's so clearly and obviously designed to just siphon money from old people. Like, if you play it correctly, you just, like, play it every now and then, whatever, but, like, it just, I don't know, that just, like, kind of puts me off. They all just seem so ridiculously monetized. Like, there has to be someone that made a match 3 game that's just, like, it's just, like, match 3 without all the crazy shit. But, I mean, you make less money doing that, right? The one I'd recommend is Puzzles and Dragons. It looks like a match 3 game, but you like pick up an orb and move it around to make a bunch of matches based on your leader cards. Ooh, it's like match 3 plus hero collector kind of. That actually does sound like something that I would be into. Oh, it has like almost no one playing it either. Only has 3,500 ratings. Do you highly recommend? Are you like this? Oh, look, they got all the waifus and shit. Yeah, I don't like that. But a lot of the games that I've played that I do like the gameplay of have the waifu thing. I just don't care. But clearly so many people care. Are there really people out there fucking gooning to like anime cartoon girls? That is bro, what is going on in your life, man? Holy shit. Alright, I'll get this Puzzles and Dragons game. Any other recommendations that you guys really see? I can tell you one thing I like in mobile games. I like a bunch of different kinds of mobile games, but the like gotcha hero collector aspect of the games. I love that. I don't know why. I just fucking love that shit. So I need more games with that are different genres. I'd fuck with it. Every single subreddit of those games is filled with lewd fan art. That's what I'm saying though. I feel like a gamer, I'm not represented in that way. Like I want someone to make a like gotcha hero collector. There has to be more people out there like me who like that gameplay that those games have. Even free to play, like the gameplay is really good, but it's just like you don't goon to cartoon girls. Like it has to exist. But so many of those people who like that game like it to goon to cartoon girls. And I need to separate myself from them to just for the gameplay. You know what I mean? Gooners are willing to pay more so they get more content. Yeah, I'm not arguing with you for why it exists. Like I get it. It's just annoying, you know? Trust, though, Puzzles and Dragons is very fun to play, very stimulating. Bro, I'll try it. Whole lot of goon slander here. I live an honest life. The Zalatath feet thing. Yeah, people's obsession with feet kind of gets me. I don't think I have anything against a like fetish or fixation of any kind as long as it is not like immoral or illegal, I guess. But I don't get feet. I just don't get it. Yeah. We fucking walk on that shit. You know what I mean? Like all day. What are we doing here? Cookie Run Kingdom is what it's called. Max, have you played the Kingdom Rush cookie game? Cookie Run... What the fuck is Cookie Run Kingdom? Cookie Run Kingdom. What could this even be about? Meet the charming cookies. Join forces against Dark Enchantress Cookie. Exciting cookie battles. Build your very own kingdom. Oh, is this just another Clash of Clans? There's like a shit ton of mobile games that try to describe themselves as something, and then it just turns out to be Clash of Clans. And you're just like... You're just fucking making a giant kingdom and training troops and fighting other people. I've done Summoner's War. Summoner's War lost my interest. It is one of the OGs though. Currently my like Summoner's War type game that I'm playing is AFK Journey, and I play that every little bit every day. Big fan. Evany best mobile game? Bro, isn't Evany like that mobile game that... Have you guys ever seen those ads, the mobile game ads that show the like zombie survival thing? And like you walk through a certain thing and you gain a bunch of guns and ammo, and you walk through the other thing, but like it's an advertisement of a fake game. Like it's not the actual game, and you play the game and it's like they just got you to download the game by showing you a fake game in the advertisement. That's, by the way, whoever came up with that and the process behind how that works is fucking fascinating to me. Like, who would have thought to advertise their game by making a fake game and then advertising that, and then people join your game and realize it's not the one you advertised. How did that ever happen? There's a good YouTube video going over that. Dude, I need to watch that. And how is that legal? Yeah. Yeah, Evany is that game, by the way. Evany is the one where it's just a fucking fake game. You can see it in all the reviews too. They're like, this is not the same game from the ads, but I kept playing it and kind of liked it. They put a tiny fake version of the fake game into the game if they want to keep the game up. Otherwise, they don't care. Yeah, I've seen that. You play it at the beginning and then it's just gone. What is it? That's the big issue, Max. Those gamers prey on the same psychological markers of the slot machines do and keep people paying and playing. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made off of people in this world by doing stuff like that. It's pretty crooked, but it is what it is, you know? You see the same people jump on those boats. Like, I remember... Dude, I remember I was hanging out at a friend's house in LA, and, like, his really, like, wealthy and like, seemed to be very smart friend showed up a couple times, and he was always jumping on to the next thing. Like, the first time I met him, I forget what he was into, but the second time I met him, he had moved... It was NFTs were a thing, and he was like, yeah, man, I'm big on NFTs and this NFT startup. And he wasn't stupid. Like, when most people were, like, super big on NFTs, I just assumed they were stupid. But, like, I knew he wasn't stupid. And then someone explained it to me. There's a lot of smart people in this world that are going to make money off of the, like, scam that's scamming stupid people. And it's like, okay, I get it. But, like, it's like, I guess it's immoral, but it's also, you know, people, I don't know. I bet the only person who's getting scammed in NFTs is the last person to buy it. And there's probably a lot of money to be made in between. This is a good video on the topic. Okay. I'm going to click this link by far my least trustworthy mod, and it's probably not going to do anything to do with that topic. Wait. Okay, I slandered this guy for no fucking reason. I thought you were going to link me the fucking never going to give you up video. My bad, bro.
This is a YouTube advertisement for a mobile game called Evany the King's Return.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny. This is literally about the game this guy was talking about. I knew it was this game.
You've probably seen this ad or ads just like it a million, billion, jillion times before, right? But if you go to the App Store on your phone and you download this game, you will quickly realize that the game you see in this ad does not exist. Evany is a game about city building. You build an empire and level up your town hall and all that good stuff.
It's Clash of Clans.
But despite the fact that this ad is a lie, this marketing strategy is clearly all that
Dude, I think part of the marketing strategy too is I could be wrong about this, but like every time I've seen one of these ads, these people are playing like absolute idiots. Like they're so bad. And it makes you want to play it because you're like, I have to see what happens when the person playing this isn't dog shit.
But this ad is a lie. This marketing strategy is clearly very effective. This game has over 100 million downloads on the Google
That's fucking insane.
Play Store. So you might be thinking to yourself, why would a company even do this? What do they stand to gain by tricking over 100 million people?
Actually, this, I mean, I wonder, we've been talking about this for 10 minutes.
Into downloading a game that doesn't even exist. Well, I can answer your question in just one word. Whales. And when you think of whales, you might think of, you know, big...
Okay, so by getting people into a game... So everyone knows that mobile games are like almost purely like funded by whales, not the average free-to-play player. Like it's some stat like less than 1% of the players make 99% of the money. So I mean, I'm a fucking whale in mobile games. That's me. I do that for sure. So talking about me. But the So I'm guessing the reason they get so many people to play this game is they know they're false advertising it, but they know that even though 10 plus million, 30, 50 million people will see it's just not the game and quit, a small percentage of those people will be whales and they end up making more money. And it meant that they had to develop a fake game. That's just
giant
crazy.
Creatures swimming through the sea, or maybe, you know, the country with hills and sheep and stuff. But a mobile game developer, when they think of a whale, they think of this guy. His name is Daigo, and he is completely...
What is it? A small country like Wales? Yeah, I mean, dude, I'm not ashamed of it. I find it to be extremely fun to be a whale in mobile games. It's extremely fun. I love it, and I can do it. I'm not ashamed of it. I look forward to finding games that are fun to be whales in moderation.
And utterly addicted to a mobile game called Fate Grand Order. He spends basically every waking moment of his life playing this game, and at the time of this Wall Street Journal video being released, he had spent roughly $70,000 on the game. So much money that he couldn't actually state an exact figure. And perhaps the most shocking part of...
That's a lot of money. I have never spent $70,000 on a game.
He doesn't regret spending
never
a
done
single penny. This right here is the lifeblood of your average free-to-play mobile game. Maybe your game gets 100 million downloads, but the overwhelming majority of those players won't spend a single penny on your game. Many of them will quit after just a couple of hours.
Max, did you whale out on either Lost Ark or Diablo Immortal? Diablo Immortal, no. Lost Ark, I spent like 10K or so. But the reason why wasn't... I think when a lot of people think of whaling, they think of like you wanted to be... Like you want to be better. You're spending the same amount... You're spending the max amount that you could every day to be stronger than everyone else. That is not what I did in that game. I actually wanted to play with my friends who were actually mostly free-to-play. People like THD and Goop, who I was playing with, Kingfly, and a few others. But all of them were making 3 to 4 alts, and they were funneling all their resources to their main. And they were spending like 4 or 5 hours on the game a day to like get all of these resources. And for me, I was not willing to do that. It's boring, easy, what I loved doing in that game was raiding with them, and I wanted to keep doing that. But I didn't want to spend hours a day doing boring content. Fuck that. My time is worth a lot of money, and that just sounds boring, and fuck boring stuff. So I chose to spend the money to keep playing rather than spend time during the day. Was the thought process. I don't regret it, to be honest with you. I just ain't no fucking way I'm doing that. 10K just to be caught up and be able to play, that's wild, terrible game design. Well, I was paying 10K, I paid 10K or so. It was over a long period of time too, but it was also just, it was not to catch up to free-to-play players. It was catching up to free-to-play players who were like no-life degenning, infinite gameplay time to boost their main up to. I was also a little stronger than them. Like I wasn't like just barely keeping up. Like I was like I wasn't like, there was infinite people more geared than me, but I was like making sure that I was like ready to play because I loved raiding, but yeah.
What is it? Fun fact, the former vice chancellor of Austria was a Clash of Clans whale and even misused party funds for his Clash of Clans addiction. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see how that gets out of hand. I don't ever think I spend more than I should, but I'm comfortable spending it for entertainment, basically. What is it? Bro, do you realize if Blizzard didn't allow buckets for Race World first, that game would have lost a shitload of money you have institutionalized? Wait, do you realize if Blizzard didn't allow buckets for the race, that game would have lost a shitload of money? I have no idea what you're talking about, but that's hype. That's fucking hype, bro.
A small percentage of players will spend small amounts of money here or there just to make the game more fun for them. But then a very small number of people will spend astronomical amounts of money on the game. So much money that it makes up for all of the other people who never spent a penny combined. And the more downloads your game gets, the more whales you get. According to some sources, only about...
You guys wonder why Raid Shadow Legends like advertise so hard? Like, you're probably like, dude, how do people keep playing this game? And it's because they're not even advertising for you. It's so fascinating. They're advertising. They're spending, like, they're paying a streamer like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand to play their game on stream. And they know that of all the thousands of people watching them, they just need to get one of these motherfuckers to make all of that worth it. And they might get two. It's crazy to think about. They're advertising to thousands and thousands of people, but only one of them matters.
2% of all mobile game players turn out to be whales, yet they are responsible for spending the overwhelming majority of the money that the mobile gaming industry makes each year. And 2% of 100 million downloads is a whole lot more whales than 2% of 10,000 downloads. So an advertisement like this, which just flagrantly shows you a game that isn't real, is doing its job exactly.
See, now why did you move in front of this one? That was a total mistake. You should have just stayed in front of the one on the right.
All this ad needs to do,
you would have beaten
convince you to download the game.
God, just watching people play games so intentionally bad makes me want to blow up.
Because yeah, sure, 90% of people are going to uninstall it basically immediately, and 98% of people won't spend a penny. But those 2% make so much money that from the gaming company's perspective, all of this lying and cheating is worth it in the end. And it makes the biggest mobile game developer...
I play Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and there are definitely whales. I was looking into that game. Can you tell me if that game's fun? Can you tell me if Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes has actually good gameplay, or is it just they just took the base Summoner's War AFK Arena model and they just got the Star Wars IP and did that? Or is it actually a good game? I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm interested in hearing that. I could find out on my own by playing it, but it would be way more convenient for me for you to just tell me. And he's gone. All right, fuck it.
Billions of dollars every year. But you're all probably thinking to yourself the exact same thing right now. This is just false advertising, isn't...
Man, I don't know those other games. I like collecting all the Star Wars shit.
False advertising meant to be illegal? Don't these companies get sued into the ground for advertising a game that's completely fake? Well, in theory, yes. False advertising is illegal and it can get you into some serious trouble. But in practice, these companies aren't actually breaking the law. You see, when I said this game didn't exist, I was almost telling the truth, because
Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes is very meh. If you want to free to play, I'm gonna tell you right now, bro, I'm not free to play in those games. I am a disgusting whale within reason. So it's about those games. Is I don't care if it's fun to be free to play. I care if it's fun to be a whale, which you're not gonna get a lot of. Statistically, you're not a lot of. Any fellow whales?
This game you see in the advert does exist inside of Evany the King's Return. See, it's a mini game that you can play inside of Evany. You can play it for free for about half an hour before the levels run dry and you have to start engaging with the base building mechanics that most of the game is centered around. So to any government agency looking in, you didn't technically falsely advertise your product. This game is inside the mobile app that it's advertising. It's not false advertising, it's just disingenuous advertising. And disingenuous isn't illegal, so they get away with it. Now, there are some games that do a much worse job of pretending to be the game from the ad. Like, whilst I was researching this video, I played a game called Top War Battle Game that, as far as I could tell, wasn't even trying to pretend to be the game from the ad. So I have no idea how companies like these get away with it. But generally, the game...
I mean, it's really easy. It's obviously not regulated, and it probably will be eventually, but people will make their money before it is.
In the ad will be somewhere inside the app at some point. They run an ad that shows a game that looks kind of fun, so it convinces you to download the game. You play this little mini game for half an hour before...
Max, what would you say about how much percentage of your monthly income goes into whaling? 3%?
Or quickly
2%?
realizing that
3%?
the bulk of the game is not really what you signed up for.
Something like
this
that.
is where most people just uninstall the game and never think about it again. But for that tiny 2% of players, they get hooked on what the rest of the game contains, and they spend money again and again, and they single-handedly bankroll the entire company that makes the game for years.
I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds healthy, right? I'm convincing myself to do it more now.
To come. Now, if you've been on the internet for a while and have a relatively good memory, you might also remember these adverts. These ones are similarly infamous for being completely fake and not representing the game at all. In fact, these ones are so infamous that they actually made an entire ad campaign that literally commented on how their ads are fake.
Guys, didn't y'all believe that all those puzzle ads were fake? And there's no such game? But today, I finally found the game. Evany the King's Return.
It's the same fucking... This fake game, Evany, made an ad campaign calling out other people for making fake mobile game ads. And they're advertising a different fake game.
This one is...
That's fucking insane.
So bold in just like doubling down on the lie that I honestly...
This guy doesn't even look real. Looks like AI.
Kind of respect it. But these ads were all over the internet a few years back, just blatantly showing a game that they had no intention of actually letting you play for more than 10 minutes. But these ads were discontinued a long time ago, and they've not been running for years. And
I have
when
seen
you
these.
download Evany, this old game is nowhere to be found, which sheds a light on another strategy these mobile game companies use to advertise their game. They use what's called A/B testing. They will create a bunch of different adverts and then roll them all out onto YouTube all at once. Then they look at the statistics to see which of these ads perform.
Dude, Frunk kind of does this. Not in the degenerate, immoral mobile game whale hunting shit, but he does that with titles and stuff. And maybe thumbnails.
Performed the best, and which of them resulted in the most downloads for the game. Whichever of these ads that they created that does the best will be kept, and the rest will get discarded. They then take the successful ad and they make some iterations of it, changing, you know, details here and there inside the ad. Then they roll out those ads again and measure their success. And they do this over and over again until they have the perfect ad to get as many downloads as possible for their game.
It's not stupid.
And the most important part of all is that whatever minigame they decide to show in the advert is literally completely made up from scratch. And if
God, they're so bad. It just makes me, dude. It's not even about making the. It's not even about making the fucking the game. It's just watching the people play the game so bad.
to do well as an ad campaign, they then start making the mini game for their app to match the ad. Funnily enough, most products usually start, you know, making the product first and then they make the ad to reflect the product. But mobile game companies start with the ad. And the moment this ad stops
that is
working,
fucking fascinating, by the way. That's crazy.
as well as it used to, the moment people start to catch on that the game they're being advertised is completely fake, the company then changes their entire ad campaign. Make a brand new ad with a brand new fake game and spread it far and wide, starting the cycle all
The
over
decisions
again.
are so
Now,
bad.
Whilst I was researching this video, there was one thing that I just couldn't get my head around for the longest time. If you're a mobile game company and you have an ad that looks like this, that is insanely popular, why not just make your entire game look like this? Like, it's clearly super popular. People like it a lot.
It's just, it's because like the replayability, my guess is the replayability wouldn't be that good. Like someone would have just made the game, you know?
And it convinces them to
Like you'd, like realistically, this looks fun, but you'd play it for 30 minutes and never play it again. And you probably couldn't monetize it.
Like, it's clearly super popular. People like it a lot, and it convinces them to download your game. And there are literally thousands of negative reviews on the App Store page talking about how mad they are about the false advertising. So if you get all this backlash from your scummy marketing strategy, why not just make the entire game be just like the super popular ad campaign that your team came up with? Well, this is where we get to the saddest and most insidious part of the story. You see, whales are only half of the money-making strategy that these game companies employ. Because even if you get 100 million downloads on your app, even if 2 million whales rock up to your app cash in hand, you still have to convince those whales to spend their money in the first place. And this is where we get to the nasty part. The reason Evany is a base builder, and the reason it's been a base builder for its entire lifetime, is because the base builder game is created from the ground up by very intelligent people with one single goal in mind.
Get your money.
To be as addictive and manipulative as possible in order to get you to feel pressured into spending your money. And once you've started spending your money, it's designed to keep you spending.
It's evil. It's evil, guys. But with someone that has a disposable income that can play these games, it's fucking amazing. It's me. I'm the problem. I'm the reason. Not directly, but I'm the reason that this exists. And I'm sorry, but
again. Whales aren't just whales because they're stupid and have too much money on their hands. They're whales because they are unfortunately addicted to a game that they are.
Not actually that though. Like I actually have done this multiple times and just stopped playing the game and looked back at the money I spent on the game and been like, I had fun for that time and that was worth it. I don't think that is just description of it. I have been addicted to. I've been addicted to WoW. I think I've been like hard addicted to WoW. But I've never like spent money in a game uncontrollably and then been like, this was a huge mistake. Never, I've literally never done that.
Are willing to waste tens of thousands of dollars on. And this little mini game of enemies running down.
That's actually the people I feel the worst for are the people that can't stop spending, but like can't afford it and keep playing them. Like that's probably like literally gambling addiction, but I think someone in my chat mentioned that earlier. There's probably multiple of you that like realize that you're like that and just know you can't play these games, right?
You just isn't good at making whales spend their money.
Why not just gamble? Well, because they found a way to make gambling infinitely more fun.
Good at convincing people to download a game. It's fantastic marketing, but the downside of this minigame is that it's hard to monetize, whereas a base builder or an anime RPG is incredibly easy to monetize, and they use all of the nastiest little tricks in the book that you can possibly think of to manipulate people into spending their money. They slow your progression through the game to a crawl and then offer you the ability to buy your progression back. They intentionally don't make their games too skill-based so that you'll be more willing to just buy chances to win. They offer you limited time deals to make you feel pressured into spending money literally right now, or else it's time.
Yeah, that's like the most insidious thing is they basically, to be able to do this, they basically list whatever you're getting here, these gems or these training potions or whatever. They'll list these in the shop at an absurd price. It'll be like $100 for a completely insignificant amount of this thing, and no one would ever buy that. But the only reason that's there is to like legally be able to say that these limited offers are actually worth 14 times more, because they're 14 times more than what it costs to get this in the shop, but also that only exists so they can say like this is on sale basically.
Deals to make you feel pressured into spending money literally right now, or else the deal goes away. They make desirable characters, skins, or items impossible to directly buy, and make it so that the only way to access them is through loot box mechanics that are completely random. In fact, there's this...
I can't believe the person who linked me this video was the person who joined my stream 2 years ago and said all mods are stupid internet janitors, and I made him a mod, and for multiple years has been being a goody two shoes mod. He's been cosplaying as like the most corny type of mod, and he's never serious, and then he linked me this video, which is exactly what I wanted to see.
Really scary,
That's fucking
disgusting
insane.
video on the internet called Let's Go Whaling, where this guy, this evil, dirty fucking bastard of a man, goes on a massive 20-minute talk about just how he monetizes a mobile game, and it is genuinely...
Yeah, I've seen this, and it is if you want like your hope in humanity to not be completely disintegrated, do not watch this video. But this guy basically just goes through a like presentation on how to get people to spend money that they don't have. Insane.
Like staring
It's
in the
insane.
face of Satan himself. I won't go over the entire video
It's
here.
insane.
I'll just link it in
It's
the
like evil shit.
description for you to watch the whole thing. And
Completely
I really do
unethical.
recommend you watch it, because he goes over every dirty little trick in the business that mobile game companies use to pathologize spending money. And after you've finished watching that video, and after this guy has made you really angry, just think that there are dozens of people just like this
Oh,
guy.
dude, yeah, this is just the guy you know. This is like common business
that work
practice
at
with
the
mobile games.
biggest and most profitable gaming companies in
Blizzard, get shit on.
the world, and they spend
True. I mean, Blizzard, Warcraft, Rumble, so true.
every moment of their working lives trying to weasel their way into your mind and into your wallet. So that is why the mobile game company can't just make their entire game look like the ad, because the game in the ad looks much more fun to play, but it's much worse at slyly convincing people to part with their hard-earned cash. And you might be sat at home thinking to yourself, well, I would never be dumb enough to fall for this stuff. I have never spent a penny on a mobile game in my life. And that's just the thing. Because you're probably right. You probably wouldn't fall for this stuff. But there are people out there that do. And they fall for it really hard. And as much as you might not want to admit it, those people are just like you and me. They're not dumber than you. They're not necessarily
All right,
less
well,
able
don't
to
call
see
me
it for what it
fucking
is
stupid.
than you are. They're just more prone to falling into these addiction traps
hey,
than you are. They are being
I'm
manipulated
responsible.
in one way or another by a bunch of people in suits just like this fucker who spend their
I love how he keeps bringing this guy
lives
back up.
abusing quirks of human psychology to make themselves insanely rich at the expense of everyday people just like you. So if you're ever watching YouTube and you see a mobile game ad that looks appealing to you, please, for the love of God, don't click on it. Because clicking on it is exactly
I'm gonna do it.
what they want you to do.
Not from the fake ads though. The fake ads is like there's like ethic from a mobile game spender. There are ethical mobile game spenders, and there are ones that are like completely egregious money traps that are just bad games. And you can tell. One of the ways to tell is the fake ads thing. Like the fake ads is that game's dog shit. Because there are great games that you can spend a ton of money in that are not dog shit and don't do that. That like there's other signs too, but like, yeah. Not that this matters. It probably doesn't relate to anybody, but. Max, did you talk about the pirate software tweet? Yeah, I did. Anyways, I'm gonna go blow up. So, I'll see you guys tomorrow, I think. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow is Wednesday. Oh, our dogs know we're getting up. Look at that. They're getting hype. All right, see you later. Dude, that doesn't get them anymore. What do I actually say? when I get up. I have to say something. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I mean, dude, Ella doesn't fucking... Oh, wait, Ella's getting hype. Oh, Ella, get your turkey. Ella, get your turkey. Where is it? Where'd you put your turkey? There's your turkey. Get your turkey. Oh, yeah, here it comes. Oh, hi, Reptar. Hi, Reppy. Hi, little Rep. Ella, can I see that turkey, please? Ella, can I see... Oh, well, you have such a nice turkey. Okay.